The young man stands at the precipice of a towering cliff, burdened by the weight of his own failures. He acknowledges his frailty and the choices that have brought him to this moment. As he plunges into the abyss, his thoughts spiral inward, grappling with the meaning of his existence. To the bitter end, he perceives himself as an empty vessel, having accomplished nothing of worth, left no mark. And now, his miserable life draws to its final act. Throughout his days he was cast aside as insignificant, and now he meets his demise as one forgotten. Not long before this moment, a fierce warrior clashed with a colossal rat while a sorceress prepared her incantation. The boy, teetering on the edge, watched the chaos unfold. The swordsman delivered a crushing blow, but the monstrous creature endured, undeterred by the assault. Urgently, the warrior bellowed for Jolene to complete her spell at last. She unleashed a roaring fireball, consuming the beast in flames and claiming victory for their party. The man proclaims that his prowess is unparalleled, while the witch arrogantly credits their triumph to her magic, emphasizing that it was her sorcery that ensured their survival. The more modest comrade acknowledges their collective efforts but soon adopts a disdainful demeanor, sneering as he orders the third team member to get to work, dismissively referring to him as nothing more than a garbage collector. The young man corrects him, stating his name is Ein, only to stumble clumsily. The leader seizes the opportunity to reprimand him, branding him useless. Jolene steps in, urging Zoid to temper his harshness, pointing out that Ein is of the low common class, unlike the two fighters, who belong to the higher common class. Ein hurriedly apologizes, explaining that his backpack is unbearably heavy, but Zoid dismisses his excuse with irritation, commanding him to inspect the colossal rat immediately, deeming it the sole task he seems fit to accomplish. As Ein reluctantly carries out his assignment, his thoughts wander to his station as a low common class appraiser. From birth, every individual is endowed with an occupation by the goddess of light, while the goddess of darkness grants them skills. By refining these skills, one can unlock an array of abilities. However, occupations are predetermined and immutable, passed down generationally, offering no hope for change. Occupations are divided into three distinct tiers: low common, high common, and rare. The rarest tier is reserved for an elite few, such as influential merchants and brilliant military tacticians. The second tier encompasses figures like Zoid and Jolene, mages and knights expertly trained for combat. At the bottom rung lie the low common professions such as peasants and appraisers, roles deemed ill-suited for battle. Occupations are generally hereditary, with children inheriting their parents' trades. However, Ein, having been orphaned at a young age, was unable to carry on his family's craft. Left to his own devices, he chose one of the few paths available to those of the common class, that of an adventurer harboring hopes of amassing riches. Yet dreams often clash with the harsh truths of reality. Employing his appraisal skill, Ein evaluates the giant rat, determining its overall rarity to be F, the lowest classification, while its fangs achieve a modest D rank. The challenge, however, lies in the fact that Ein lacks the physical strength required to extract the fangs on his own. Growing impatient, Zoid voices his irritation at the delay. Ein hesitantly requests assistance in prying open the rat's mouth, only to be met with scorn. Zoid, affronted by the mere suggestion, retorts that he would never stoop to touching such a repugnant creature. Jolene chimes in with a cutting remark, stating that such a menial task is perfectly suited for a trash collector. Frustrated by the delay, the swordsman hurls a rock at the boy's head before delivering a swift kick to his face. Jolene, observing this, remarks that while she and Zoid risk their lives to protect Ein, he lingers idly, distracted and devoid of any semblance of gratitude. Despite the humiliation and assault, Ein lowers his head and apologizes, conceding that the world is inherently unjust. Resigned, he returns to his task, straining to pry open the rat's jaws while enduring the derisive laughter of his companions, who find amusement in the unpleasantness of his duties. Zoid sneers, emphasizing the indignity of an appraiser's existence, noting that their sole purpose is to transport the carcasses of slain creatures to the guild, where magical instruments will perform the proper evaluations. Ein reluctantly concurs, admitting that his primary talent lies in extracting resources from monsters, a role that, by his own admission, renders him little more than a glorified garbage collector. Zoid presses further, smugly declaring that allowing Ein to join their team was an act of charity, motivated solely by their unwillingness to soil their enchanted bags with such revolting remains. With that, the two fighters press on, ordering Ein to finish his task without delay. Left behind, the boy's lips tremble, a blend of sorrow and frustration flickering in his eyes, but all he can do is endure the humiliation. As the group advances deeper into the dungeon, they unexpectedly stumble upon the lifeless body of a hellhound. Zoid wastes no time, barking an order at the trash picker to search the corpse. Ein hesitates, voicing his unease, noting that this discovery is unusual. Guild records explicitly state that such creatures should not inhabit this dungeon. Zoid scoffs at Ein's concern, silencing him with a forceful kick that sends him sprawling onto the carcass. Jolene, on the other hand, beams with satisfaction, commenting on the high value of the Hellhound's materials. The swordsman, indifferent to Ein's plight, muses aloud that this fortunate find warrants a celebratory drink after the expedition. Perhaps, he adds with a smug grin, the inn might also offer a chance for some flirtation with the mage. Meanwhile, Ein reluctantly begins his evaluation of the hellhound, determining it to be a rank B rarity, a significant find. As Zoid scans the area, his attention is drawn to two diverging paths ahead. On the right path, he spots another identical hellhound corpse. Ein's expression shifts, darkening with palpable fear. Something is undeniably wrong. The map distinctly shows only one route in this section of the dungeon. Irritated by the circumstances, Zoid erupts in a fit of rage, his frustration boiling over. The group leader, his patience waning, coldly threatens to expel Ein from their ranks if he refuses to press on. Ein, fully aware of his precarious position and the unlikelihood of finding another team willing to accept someone with his seemingly worthless occupation, reluctantly agrees to remain. As the group advances, they stumble upon the bodies of several dead hellhounds. Zoid views the scene with greed, regarding it as a potential goldmine of resources. Ein, however, voices his unease yet again, pointing out the unusual nature of the situation. If these creatures had been slain by adventurers, the materials would surely have been harvested already. Annoyed by his persistence, the leader barks at him to hold his tongue. But before further discussion can ensue, a pack of live hellhounds emerges from the shadows, blocking their path. Realizing that they are vastly outnumbered and ill-equipped to confront so many adversaries, the group scrambles to devise an escape plan. Zoid, his mind racing, proposes a grim solution: paralyze Ein and use him as bait to divert the hellhounds. The mage, without hesitation, agrees to the heartless scheme. Before Ein can protest, he is rendered immobile by magic. Powerless and abandoned, the boy is left behind as his so-called allies flee, sacrificing him to ensure their own survival. The hellhounds lunged at Ein, their fangs tearing into his flesh with ruthless ferocity. The searing pain was so intense that it shattered the magical paralysis, granting Ein a fleeting moment of clarity. Desperation surging through him, he grabbed a nearby stone and struck two of the beasts with all his remaining strength. With no other options, he hurled the contents of his backpack to distract the ravenous creatures and staggered away as quickly as his battered body would allow. Though his injuries rendered every step excruciating, Ein pressed on, only to find his path to safety obstructed by the very teammates who had betrayed him. Forced to seek another way, he stumbled onto an alternate route, one that led him directly to the edge of a towering cliff. Standing at the precipice, Ein was faced with a harrowing choice: to be savagely torn apart by the pursuing hellhounds or to hurl himself into the abyss and embrace the unknown. As his life teetered on the brink, Ein's thoughts turned inward. Bitter irony gripped him as he reflected on the futility of his existence. A life spent groveling before people like Jolene and Zoid, enduring humiliation and gaining nothing in return. Abandoned and devoid of the skills to protect himself, he shouldered the blame for his own inadequacy. With grim resolve, he stepped forward and plunged into the void. Some time later, an ethereal figure resembling a radiant woman appeared and approached Ein's bloodied forehead, pressing a gentle kiss upon it. Slowly, he began to regain consciousness, disoriented and uncertain if he was still trapped in a dream as his eyes adjusted to the luminous figure before him. After blinking several times, the haziness faded, and he found himself standing before an immense, awe-inspiring tree. His injuries miraculously healed without a trace of pain. Encircling the area was an endless cascade of waterfalls, their streams shimmering like liquid crystal. Upon closer inspection, he realized that the falling droplets were from the World Tree itself, renowned in legend for its unparalleled ability to instantly heal wounds and purge ailments. As Ein's gaze lingered on the towering tree, he began to comprehend its majesty. This was no ordinary tree, but the World Tree in its true form, a source of boundless mana thriving effortlessly without the sustenance of sunlight. A wave of disbelief washed over him, for he had always regarded the World Tree as mere folklore. Ancient tales spoke of a singular tree that once enriched the world with its magical energy, a vital force that powered the existence of all beings. From the air saturated with mana produced by the tree, individuals harnessed its essence, transforming it within their bodies. Yet it was widely believed that the World Tree had withered into oblivion, its existence reduced to myth and memory. The continuous production of mana posed countless questions. Scholars had long theorized that additional world trees might exist scattered across the globe, yet no evidence of such discoveries had ever been verified. Reflecting on this hypothesis, Ein tentatively placed a hand upon the tree's bark, silently offering his gratitude for its life-saving intervention. Suddenly, a melodious female voice resonated through the air. Startled, he glanced around, but finding no one in sight, he dismissed it as a trick of his imagination. The tranquility of the area struck him as peculiar. No monsters prowled the dungeon's expanse, a stark contrast to the hostile environment he had narrowly escaped. Yet this eerie calm left him uneasy as he deliberated his next move. It was evident that Zoid and Jolene had no intention of sending anyone to retrieve their so-called trash picker. The absence of food in the vicinity further solidified his grim predicament. Facing the looming threat of starvation, Ein acknowledged that his only option was to brave the unknown and seek an exit. Casting one final, lingering look at the majestic tree, he steeled his resolve and began his journey down the solitary path before him. As he turned to leave, the enigmatic figure manifested once more, its ethereal form exuding an air of silent purpose. Though it spoke no words, its presence radiated an unspoken intent that lingered in the air like a delicate whisper. He ventured cautiously down the uncharted path, his thoughts weighed by the uncertainty of the unknown. This territory was entirely unfamiliar even to the guild's most experienced adventurers. The possibility of encountering creatures far more formidable than the hellhounds loomed heavily in his mind. Yet, despite the trepidation curling in his chest, he summoned the courage to press forward, vowing to abandon the shackles of his self-doubt and timidity. From this moment onward, Ein resolved to seize control of his fate. With renewed determination, he bent down, grasping a jagged stone from the earth, fashioning it into an improvised weapon. Clutching it tightly, he steeled himself and forged ahead, ready to confront whatever challenges lay in his path. After some time, Ein, though bracing for an encounter with monsters, found nothing out of the ordinary. A fleeting sense of relief washed over him as he allowed himself to believe he might soon discover an exit. Yet his brief moment of tranquility was abruptly shattered when a blade sliced through the air with astonishing speed, grazing his ear. The searing pain sent him crashing to his knees. His hand shot instinctively to his ear. But before he could react further, the same deadly weapon struck again, severing several of his fingers with precision. Moments later, a figure emerged from the shadows. Ein quickly assessed the attacker and recognized the familiar traits of a gremlin, an elusive rank S demon famed for its unparalleled speed and lethal agility. Without a moment's hesitation, the gremlin launched a barrage of swift strikes, each one inflicting further damage upon Ein. Helpless and immobilized by his wounds, the boy came to a stark realization. Understanding the enemy's abilities alone was not sufficient to overcome it. In a fluid motion, the gremlin maneuvered behind him, raising its scythe to deliver the final lethal strike. Ein squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the end, but the blow never landed. When he dared to open his eyes, he found that the gremlin had been frozen in place, then crushed beneath the weight of a much larger, more formidable creature. The formidable creature towering over him was a death bear, also ranked S, frozen by terror. Ein remained paralyzed, unable to move in the presence of such an overwhelming force. The bear struck with brutal precision, its claws slashing across his face and tearing into his eye. Ein cried out in excruciating pain, his body convulsing from the injury as blood poured freely. But the suffering had only just begun. The death bear then grasped the boy in its massive grip, crushing him with its titanic strength, leaving him a broken, lifeless husk. As the beast reared its head to unleash a thunderous roar, Ein gave in to the inevitable, his mind resigning itself to the end. However, a torrent of blood gushed through the labyrinth. Not from Ein, but from the death bear itself. In the distance, a mysterious entity voiced its frustration at being summoned to rescue a mere human. Later, Ein awakened before the World Tree, his wounds astonishingly healed. Before him stood a captivating figure. As if conjured from a myth, her presence ethereal. She held a delicate cup of tea, her expression serene and enigmatic. She offered no words, only a gentle smile. Unsure how to respond, Ein's eyes quivered with admiration as the creature who had come to his aid, introducing herself as the girl's mother, remarked that her daughter had gone to great lengths to prepare this tea for him. She insisted that he drink it as if he had never tasted anything so exquisite in his life. Embarrassed, the girl offered the tea to Ein, but seeing his hesitation, her mother took the cup from her hands and with little regard for his discomfort poured the liquid down his throat. Despite the awkwardness, Ein couldn't help but declare his fondness for the drink, much to the delight of the blonde girl whose ears twitched in joy. Overcome by the moment's intensity, Ein impulsively exclaimed that she was beautiful, only for the mother to sternly warn him that any indecent thoughts toward her daughter would lead to serious consequences. Ein reconsidered his words and inquired if these two were the ones who had saved him. The white-haired one responded that Yuri had insisted they rescue the boy. Yuri, however, denied having done anything, prompting the mother to explain that were it not for her persistence, the boy would have perished. Grateful, Ein expressed his thanks, which caused the girl's small ears to twitch once more. Observing this, the mother promptly kicked Ein in the face and sternly instructed him to address her daughter with more respect. Yuri, however, calmly informed her mother that she preferred to be called by her first name. It was only then that Ein understood the true nature of their relationship and asked if they were truly related by blood. The girl, adjusting her glasses, confirmed they were, or at least something very close to it. She introduced herself as Ursula, the guardian of the World Tree. She explained that this world was home to 9 such trees, and the guardians were entrusted with ensuring their health and protecting them from threats. Since Yuri had made her home in this place, Ursula had dwelled at its base. Ein found it peculiar that the girl seemed to regard Yuri as a tree, but Ursula insisted that this was in fact the truth. Yuri was the very spirit of the World Tree, Pondering this revelation, Ein commented on the woman's extraordinary beauty, which prompted Ursula to strike him once more for his audacious remark. She scolded him, saying she hadn't restored his eye for him to take such liberties. Ein then recalled how a death bear had once torn out his eye, yet now it was fully healed. Ursula explained that she had used drops from the world tree to heal him. However, since reconstructing the human eyeball was impossible, she had crafted an artificial spiritual eye for him using a piece of the tree at Yuri's request. Curious about Yuri's motivations, Ein asked why she had done all this. Ursula reminisced that after being saved, the boy had personally expressed gratitude to the tree, a gesture that deeply moved her. According to Ursula, it was a rare occurrence for anyone to fall into this abyss, yet Yuri always sought to rescue those who did. No one had ever expressed gratitude before. In fact, when people discovered it was the world tree, they would rip off branches and leaves to take for themselves. Thus Yuri felt a rare sense of joy upon hearing Ein's words. Seizing the moment, the boy thanked her for saving him twice and acknowledged that he owed his life to her. This time, the girl's embarrassment was so intense that not only did her ear twitch, but her entire body quivered as well. Unable to endure the awkwardness any longer, Ursula impatiently ordered the boy to leave, stating that he had already been saved and there was nothing else to be done. However, Yuri, concerned that Ein would surely die if he attempted to return alone, pleaded with the guardian to do something. Ursula explained that her oath bound her to stay within a certain range of the world tree, and that teleportation spells were ineffective in this area, making escape impossible. Upon hearing this, Yuri began to cry, which softened Ursula's heart. She reluctantly agreed to train Ein, ensuring that he would grow strong enough to leave on his own. Moved by the opportunity, Ein enthusiastically embraced the two mysterious figures. However, Ursula swiftly pushed the overzealous boy away and firmly stated that he would be trained by the greatest sage there was, which meant that no feeble efforts would be tolerated. In response, Ein vowed to give his utmost effort. Without hesitation, Ursula began his training, leading him to learn some techniques. Ein was apprehensive, fearing that she might simply throw him at a monster without any knowledge of swordsmanship. But the guardian clarified that the conventional method, filled with theory, would take too long. They had no time for such delays. Instead, Ein would be trained primarily through hands-on experience. She then instructed him to look down the corridor, though the darkness obscured any view. Ursula explained that with his newly acquired spiritual eye, Ein now possessed a far more extraordinary organ than ordinary human eyes. The key, she explained, was for him to become aware of this new ability. Once he did, everything would change. Concentrating on his lesson, Ein recalled that his left eye had been destroyed by the bear, leaving him in total darkness. Yet, Yuri had brought him light, and from that moment onward, everything he would perceive in this world was blessed by the woman who had gifted it to him. Reflecting on this, he felt warmth emanate from his spiritual eye. When he opened it, the entire corridor became clear to him. With this, Ursula initiated the real training, summoning a gremlin to challenge the apprentice. Instantly, the creature began to move in rapid, erratic circles, impossible for Ein to track, and he was filled with fear. Ursula instructed him to evade all of the monster's movements. Ein doubted his ability to do so, but the master reminded him of the power of assessment now available to him. This ability, which had only been used to check statuses and similar information, had far more potential, as Ursula had already explained. With the spiritual eye, the meaning of everything had changed. The human mastered the technique, and this was no exception. He activated assessment on the gremlin, and the panel displayed that the creature would slash his right ear with remarkable speed. Though he was able to read the information, the boy even found himself celebrating when the gremlin followed the prediction, slicing his ear and leaving Ein writhing in pain on the ground. To prevent her pupil from succumbing to death, Ursula cast a magical shield around them and applied drops from the world tree to heal his wound completely, reattaching his severed ear. Thanks to the restorative power of the water, Ein could relax, knowing he could push himself to the brink of death without truly dying. With this reassurance, the apprentice resumed his training, repeating the process of reading the enemy's movements. However, he found himself unable to react to the gremlin's attack with his current reflexes. According to his master, the answer always lay within the spiritual eye. Determined, Ein focused on this newly acquired sense, seeking the solution he needed. Thinking beyond the limits of human imagination, Ein activated the reevaluate skill. This time, it not only predicted where the opponent would strike, but also when. In this instance, the gremlin was set to slice his left leg in 5 seconds. He counted down in his mind, then swiftly leapt to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack. It was the first time he had successfully dodged a monster, especially one of S rank. However, in his distraction, Ein turned to inform his teacher only to be caught off guard and struck squarely on the back. Ursula, ever the harsh teacher, mocked him for lowering his guard so quickly. Ein, acknowledging his mistake, realized that to survive against such a powerful foe, he needed to integrate evaluation into his movements as effortlessly as breathing. Only then would he be able to confront a creature of such strength. When he achieved that, the boy felt as if his entire world would be forever altered. The training progressed, and Ain's ability to dodge strikes improved at a rapid pace, to the point where he could avoid multiple attacks with ease. At one point, Ain became distracted and took another hit, but Ursula, deciding it was time to move on, informed him that the next phase of his training had begun. From now on, Ain was expected to defeat the gremlin. The boy immediately voiced his frustration, complaining about not having a weapon. In response, the master handed him a wooden sword crafted from the world tree, a gift from Yuri. Ain, filled with gratitude, once again thanked the spirit that had saved him and prepared to face the challenge. Standing before the gremlin, Ain mentally reviewed the steps he had memorized up to that point. He knew that now he had to strike at precisely the right moment before the monster landed a blow. He counted the 5 seconds indicated by the evaluation, but to his surprise the gremlin dodged his strike. Frustrated, Ain asked what he should do next, but Ursula, equally fed up, dismissed him with a terse command to figure it out himself. Left with no other option, Ain tried to position the sword where the gremlin would strike, hoping to minimize his time handling the weapon. However, this strategy failed as well. Realizing his mistake, Ain understood that the gremlin, like him, was capable of thinking and adapting before acting. If it saw a sword in front of it, it would dodge. Spirits and humans, he concluded, did not perceive the world in the same way. With this newfound clarity, Ain focused his spiritual eye and successfully activated super evaluation, which slowed time around him to a crawl. With this advantage, he struck the gremlin's head with a powerful blow, defeating the monster for the first time in his life. Ecstatic, he celebrated his victory. However, Ursula swiftly slapped him, admonishing him that it was far too early for such celebrations. The real challenge, she reminded him, was yet to come. Ain's next task was to defeat the numerous gremlins scattered throughout the tunnel in succession. Although the task seemed manageable to him, Ursula had higher expectations, knowing he possessed the spiritual eye. Regardless, it was time for the next lesson. The next step was for Ain to evaluate a gremlin's abilities and steal its technique. Ain protested, explaining that he could only evaluate, not steal powers. Ursula scoffed at his naivete, reminding him that evaluation was always about not only understanding an enemy's abilities but also absorbing them, especially with his left eye. Reluctantly, Ain turned his focus to a nearby gremlin and evaluated it. The moment he did, a sharp, excruciating pain gripped his head, as if the gremlin's power had forcibly entered his mind. Next, Ain tested his newfound speed and was astonished by his enhanced abilities. However, his body could not yet keep up with the pace, and his muscles tore after just one sprint. Ursula quickly healed him and explained that this was to be expected, as muscles would grow stronger each time they were torn. She emphasized that he needed to push himself and continue running until his body toughened up. With this lesson in mind, Ain dedicated himself to training, determined to push his limits. Over time, his body reached a new level of endurance, and he began to feel confident enough to face even a death bear. However, Ursula cautioned that Ain was growing overly confident, which prompted him to lower his head in regret, realizing he wasn't yet capable of such feats. Sensing his disappointment, Ursula decided to show some leniency. She allowed him to analyze her abilities. Eager and intrigued, Ain asked her to reveal her power. In response, Ursula hurled a fireball at him, and after the display she explained that she had used a spell known as Fireball combined with Discard Enchantment. This technique enabled the user to summon spells without the need to chant the incantation. Once the apprentice had recovered from the spell's effects, his master immediately cast the same spell once again. Ain quickly performed the evaluation and felt the shift in his body, noting the sensation of his body igniting once more. However, despite sealing the discard enchantment, Ursula threw more fire at him to further cement his learning of the technique. After 5 days of intense training, Ain frequently fainted due to his low magical capacity. Each time this happened, Yuri would use drops from the World Tree to help him recover and gradually increase his capacity. However, to benefit from this increase, Ain had to first exhaust all his magical reserves. 15 days later, Ain was capable of launching 1,000 fireballs at once, in addition to mastering other mid-tier spells like Windstorm. Seeing the progress her pupil had made, Ursula declared that the time had come for a rematch. Soon, Ain found himself standing before a death bear drenched in sweat from nervousness, yet his master assured him that all he had to do was replicate his training and unceremoniously kicked him toward the beast. Recalling how he had once been left to die in a cave, Ain recognized the transformation within himself, which gave him the courage to launch several fireballs. However, his nerves got the best of him, and he missed each one. At the very least, the missed shots created a smoke screen. Seizing the opportunity, the boy activated super speed and super evaluation, slowing everything around him. With this advantage, he struck the bear directly with Windstorm, but the creature retaliated fiercely. This time, Ain focused his energy and unleashed 100 fireballs in rapid succession. The barrage was more than enough to take down the death bear. Afterward, Ein briefly considered the possibility that the bear had always been weak, but quickly rethought it and realized that the true change was within him. He had become strong. After vanquishing the bear, Ein assessed its remains and absorbed its formidable energy. Ursula remarked that with the newfound strength now coursing through him, no monster would stand in his way. Taken aback, Ein inquired further, seeking clarity on her words. Ursula then revealed that his training was complete and that the time had come for him to return to his world. She added that she had a parting gift, one that Yuri had specifically requested on his behalf. Though Ursula's irritation was palpable, Ein, intrigued, asked what the gift entailed. She handed him a stone, explaining that it would serve as the foundation for crafting a new artificial eye, one far superior to the one he possessed, and that it was the final shard of the world tree. Ein, uncertain, hesitated, asserting that his current eye was already of remarkable quality and that he had no need for it. Ursula, however, responded firmly, insisting that he would not keep the stone. It would be returned upon his death. She then commanded him to kneel, and with precise motion she embedded the stone into his eye. Once the procedure was completed, Ein remarked that he felt no different, and began calling out for Yuri as he searched for her. She appeared suddenly, her face flushed with embarrassment. Yuri revealed that she had now become a part of the new eye. Ursula elaborated that as the stone originated from the world tree, Ein's vision had now aligned with that of the tree itself. Consequently, Yuri would forever accompany him, able to witness everything he saw and offer her aid wherever he went. Overcome with excitement, Yuri announced that she would now travel with him, ready to provide healing through the restorative water she carried. Ein then turned to Ursula, questioning whether she truly approved of this arrangement. Enraged, Ursula struck Ein and vehemently stated that she could never place her trust in a commoner like him with her daughter's future. When Ein asked why she allowed it, Ursula explained that since Yuri's birth she had never formed any meaningful connections or friendships with anyone. She wished for Yuri to experience the world through Ein, whom she believed to possess a compassionate heart. Ursula made Ein vow to protect Yuri and ensure her happiness. Deeply moved, Ein swore to Ursula that he would safeguard Yuri and bring her joy. Pleased with his promise, Ursula extended her hand and cast a spell, bestowing a gift upon him for his journey. When Ein inquired about the gift, Ursula explained that it was a spell storage system with boundless capacity, enabling him to store anything he required. She then handed him a sword, revealing that it was forged from materials linked to Yuri, and it was named the Spirit Sword. Astonished, Ein asked if she was truly entrusting him with the sword. Ursula confirmed this, but warned there was one final step. With deliberate force, she inserted the sword into his eye, inflicting intense pain upon him. Once the agony subsided, she produced a yellow stone, placed it in his mouth, and instructed him to swallow it. As he did, the stone caused his eye to shift in color. Ursula explained that the stone would enable her to remain connected to him, allowing her to observe everything he did. She cautioned him not to burden Yuri with excessive pleas, her irritation evident. Ein affirmed his readiness, then turned to Yuri, asking if there was anything she wished to do after leaving with him. Yuri shared her longing to reunite with her family, particularly her older and younger siblings. Puzzled, Ein inquired further, unsure of her meaning. Ursula then revealed that Yuri had once been part of a collective group of world trees and had journeyed to this place long ago. Realizing the depth of her desire, Ein turned to Yuri and acknowledged her wish. He promised to help her reconnect with her family, vowing to make it a reality. Yuri, her voice filled with hesitation, asked if she would be a burden. Ein extended his hand to her, reassuring her that he too wished to meet her family. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Yuri thanked him earnestly. As Ein ventured down a corridor, uncertainty clouded his thoughts, unsure of which path to take. Ursula's voice rang out, directing him to turn left. She added that she had marked arrows along the way and cautioned him of a venomous serpent lurking ahead. Ein responded confidently, stating he would handle the creature through his appraisal. When he encountered the serpent, Ein swiftly defeated it. Afterward, he appraised the beast, uncovering its benefits and absorbing its power. However, the process was agonizing, causing excruciating pain in his head. Just as the pain reached its peak, it abruptly ceased. Yuri appeared, explaining that she had relieved his suffering. Thankful, Ein expressed his gratitude, which caused Yuri to blush with embarrassment. Ein approached a large door, and Ursula informed him that beyond it stood a colossal and formidable monster guarding the core of the labyrinth. She explained that this beast was the protector of the core. With unwavering determination, Ein declared that he was no longer the weak person he once was, and that his training, coupled with the power of the world tree, had prepared him for this moment. Yuri appeared once more, offering her reassurance and expressing her full confidence in his ability to triumph. Together, they entered the chamber where the core resided. Inside, they found a summoning circle, and from it emerged an enormous monster. Stunned by its sheer size, Ein exclaimed, "How massive it is!" He quickly instructed Yuri to return to his eye for safety, then charged at the creature. The monster struck fiercely at Ein, but he managed to deflect the blow. though its power was nearly enough to overwhelm him. Drawing strength from the venomous ability he had absorbed from the serpent, Ein unleashed the poison, which began to affect the monster, gradually weakening it. The monster, undeterred, used its other arm to unleash a barrage of strikes, all of which Ein expertly dodged. Gasping for breath, Ein muttered that he had come dangerously close to death. Ursula reminded him that he still had a spell at his disposal, one that could decisively end the battle. Surprised, Ein asked if he truly had such an option. Ursula confirmed, explaining that the spell was the key to vanquishing the monster. Steeling himself, Ein prepared the powerful incantation and released it, striking the monster with devastating force. The creature collapsed, defeated. In a daze, Ein, still struggling to grasp the reality of the situation, asked if he had truly emerged victorious. Yuri appeared, her voice filled with joy, and assured him that he had indeed won. Ein, still in disbelief, stood frozen, unable to fully comprehend that he had defeated such a formidable foe. He reflected on how, without Yuri's support, this victory would have been impossible. Filled with gratitude, he took Yuri's hand and sincerely thanked her for her unwavering support. Ursula then instructed Ein to appraise the monster and absorb its power. As Ein complied with the appraisal, Ursula informed him that there were no more monsters left in the labyrinth, so there was nothing else to assess. She then directed him to proceed to the core. Upon reaching the core, Ursula suddenly appeared beside him, startling him. She explained that due to their shared communication link, she could appear before him anywhere. Ursula then revealed that the labyrinth's core was similar to a soul core. Confused, Ein inquired about its meaning. Ursula explained that the core had the potential to greatly enhance his strength. Ein wondered if this could also improve his eye and augment its power. Without hesitation, he asked Ursula to use the core's power to enhance his eye immediately. Ursula transferred the core's energy into his eye. When Ein opened his eye once more, he sensed a profound difference, realizing that his strength had now reached level 2. Ursula informed him that if he continued to conquer powerful boss monsters in other labyrinths, his strength would grow even further. After exiting the chamber, the door behind them closed automatically. Alarmed, Ein hurried to the door, attempting to reopen it. Ursula explained that once the labyrinth's core was taken, the path to the World Tree was sealed, and even the pit Ein had fallen through was now closed. She reassured Yuri that this ensured the safety of the World Tree, and that she could now live peacefully as she desired. Ein then asked if they could safely return to the surface. With confidence, Ursula urged them to move quickly, and they began their journey out of the labyrinth. Meanwhile, back at a tavern, Zoid was dramatically recounting his experience in the labyrinth to his friends. He cautioned them against venturing there, claiming the place was swarming with hellhounds. He exaggerated the tale, stating that Ein had bravely protected the group, giving Zoid and Jolin the chance to escape. Pretending to be heartbroken, Zoid claimed that Ein had sacrificed his life for them, even beginning to shed fake tears as he spoke. Suddenly, a voice from behind asked who had died. Startled, Zoid turned around to find Ein standing there, looking just as surprised. Zoid spat out his drink and demanded to know how Ein was still alive. Ein casually replied that he was as alive as Zoid could see. Angry and suspicious, Zoid seized Ein by the collar and demanded to know how he had escaped the labyrinth. Ein remained calm, explaining that he had defeated the monsters within. Zoid, unwilling to believe him, called Ein a liar, insisting that he was incapable of such feats. One of Zoid's friends intervened, questioning why Zoid was angry at the man who had supposedly saved his life. This prompted Ein to reveal the truth to everyone. Zoid and Jolin had used him as bait to distract the hellhounds so they could escape. The other warriors in the tavern were enraged, hurling their drinks at Zoid before charging at him. Ein stepped forward to intervene, urging the others to stop. He explained that despite everything, if Zoid hadn't included him in the team, he would never have met Yuri and Ursula or gained the strength he now possessed. Ein then approached Zoid, expressed his sincere gratitude, and left. The warriors in the tavern were left astonished by Ein's humility, commenting on how much he had changed. Later, Ein ventured into the forest where he battled and defeated another monster of the Deus species with Ursula's aid. His strength grew further, and his level was elevated. Together, they continued their search for the rest of Yuri's family. Ursula cautioned that locating other world trees would not be an easy task, as they were hidden in remote, distant locations. Ein apologized to Yuri for the difficulty and the time the search would require. Yuri reassured him, expressing that she was the one who had requested this journey and therefore didn't mind the effort involved. Suddenly, they heard a cry for help. Yuri urged Ein to intervene and he instructed her to retreat into his eye once more. Ein rushed to the source of the disturbance, where he swiftly defeated the attacking monsters. While Ein appraised the fallen creatures and absorbed their powers, Yuri and Ursula tended to the injured guards nearby. Afterward, Ein approached a young girl and a man to check on them. The girl ran to Ein and embraced him tightly. Surprised, Ein turned to the man and asked if he could control his sister. The man introduced himself as Jasper, a well-known merchant, and clarified that he was not the girl's brother. He revealed that the girl was Princess Claudia, the third princess of the kingdom. They escorted Claudia to her estate where she expressed her gratitude for their assistance. Ein humbly replied that Yuri deserved the thanks, as she was the one who had healed the guards and servants. Claudia turned to Yuri, thanking her and assuring that everyone else would show their appreciation as well. She then attempted to hug Ein once more, but this time Yuri intervened, halting her. Confused, Claudia asked Yuri why she was unable to hug him. Hesitantly, Yuri responded that it was because she was Ein's wife. Shocked, Ein stared at Yuri, unable to believe her words. Claudia, unfazed, smiled and casually remarked that there was no issue. She would gladly become Ein's second wife. Yuri, clearly annoyed, snapped, "You're not giving up, are you?" Claudia shrugged nonchalantly and explained that it was common in their era for men to have 2 wives. This only served to further infuriate Yuri, her frustration becoming more apparent. Meanwhile, Ursula, with tears in her eyes, expressed her joy at seeing Yuri make a friend so quickly. Jasper approached Ein and requested a private conversation. Intrigued, Ein inquired about the nature of Jasper's request. Without hesitation, Jasper bluntly stated that he wished to marry Ein, causing Ein to choke on his tea in shock. Jasper, with a reassuring smile, promised to explain everything. He led Ein to a grand vault, where he revealed that he was the keeper of the kingdom's treasures, tasked with preserving their radiance. Jasper then asked if Ein's left eye was a soul core, explaining that soul cores were the very source of courage and strength. He leaned closer and inquired whether Ein was familiar with the ancient legends. Still puzzled, Ein asked which legends Jasper meant. Jasper elaborated that long ago the World Tree stood above the surface to seal away Mictoran, the Demon King, who sought to destroy the world. This battle drained the World Tree's power, leaving behind the Soul Core, which contained its very essence. Ein reflected silently, realizing that this was likely the reason the World Tree had retreated to the surface after the defeat of the Demon King. Jasper continued, explaining that he had spent years searching for the Soul Core, until he had stumbled upon Ein by chance. He then disclosed his true intention, to transfer himself into Ein's eye by any means necessary. Jasper's demeanor grew increasingly unsettling as he drew closer, gripping Ein tightly. Ursula quickly intervened, pulling Ein away from Jasper, and asked how he planned to address the marriage proposal. Ein firmly stated that he would reject it without hesitation. However, Ursula encouraged him to reconsider, highlighting Jasper's vast knowledge of the world trees and soul cores. She noted that marrying Jasper could bring wealth, valuable information, and perhaps even lead to the discovery of hidden Deus creatures. Ein approached Jasper and proposed that they form a friendship instead of pursuing marriage. Jasper smiled warmly and agreed, saying he had no objections. He then invited Ein to stay with them, suggesting that it could become Ein's future home. Claudia and Yuri, eager not to be left out, both embraced Ein after Jasper, expressing their desire to hold him as well. Surprised but amused, Ein let out a light chuckle. Intrigued, Ein asked Jasper if he knew the locations of other soul cores. Jasper nodded, confirming that he did, but cautioned that these cores were hidden in perilous, nearly inaccessible places. Undeterred, Ein asked if Jasper could reveal their locations to him, emphasizing his determination to acquire them. Jasper raised an eyebrow and asked, "Do you truly believe you can manage it?" With unwavering confidence, Ein replied, "Yes, I can." Sometime later, the group arrives at the hidden dungeon Jasper mentioned, and Ein hopes to find one of Yuri's sisters within. Sensing her unease, he gently urges her to stay calm, assuring her that he will do everything in his power to reunite them. Venturing inside, Ein eventually reaches a dead end. Ursula explains that the wall is imbued with a teleportation spell, allowing passage into the dungeon upon contact. The moment he touches it, he is transported into a sprawling forest concealed within the labyrinth, leaving him utterly awestruck. Ursula immediately suspects the presence of formidable illusions distorting the dungeon's true nature. Ein's astonishment deepens when he realizes the entire scene is a mere mirage. His contemplation is abruptly interrupted by a jubilant voice, heralding the arrival of an elder sister. Almost simultaneously, Yuri recognizes the voice as belonging to her sister Pina. Despite not seeing anyone nearby, she explains that Pina is a notorious trickster, always up to mischief. Meanwhile, through her oracle's vision, Pina observes that Yuri has allied with a human. With a playful tone, Pina informs them that she awaits at the very heart of the dungeon, wishing them luck on their journey. Ein grumbles that Yuri has come all this way just to see her sister, and urges her to teleport them. But she replies that such magic is beyond her capabilities. They will have to proceed on foot. Skeptical, Ein reflects that teleportation is indeed a rare spell, as only Ursula has demonstrated its use before. Meanwhile, Pina chimes in, warning that she has rigged the dungeon with numerous traps of her own design, not to mention the monsters roaming within. In other words, there is no certainty that the two will reach her unscathed. Even so, Yuri vows to do her best, but Pina corrects her, teasing that it is her boyfriend who needs to prove himself. Flustered, Yuri demands to know what gave her sister that impression. while Ein, undeterred, accepts the challenge and declares they should set off immediately. Given the dangers ahead, he suggests that the tree spirit remain within his eye for safety. Amused by the human's confidence, Pina is convinced he won't survive, as her dungeon is the most treacherous among the secret ones. She advises him to spare himself the trouble and surrender now. Ein, unfazed, assures her he'll manage just fine, but the spirit smirks, promising he will regret those words. Inwardly, she muses that she knows nothing about this man or why he is with her sister, but one way or another she will strip away his sheep's disguise and expose the wolf lurking beneath. As the boy advances, she notices he is oblivious to the hidden pit ahead and eagerly anticipates his fall. However, just as he is about to trigger the trap, Ursula swiftly warns him, urging him to jump. Ein reacts instantly, evading the danger, leaving the mischievous spirit utterly stunned. With the Guardian's guidance, Ein deftly navigates past the snare Pina had meticulously laid, driving the dungeon's architect to the brink of exasperation. As the argument between Pina and Ursula unfolds within Ein's mind, Yuri interjects, casually remarking that her younger sister has an unusual penchant for amusing herself at others' expense. Though Ein remains wary of the labyrinth's peril, recalling that a single misstep could be fatal, Pina bristles at the notion. She adamantly clarifies that her labyrinth is not designed to be lethal. Had there been genuine danger, he would have been expelled automatically. Regardless, fueled by sheer spite, she decides to pit him against a formidable monster, yet graciously grants him a final chance to surrender before facing inevitable defeat. Refusing to concede, Ein braces himself as the monster is summoned before him. Ursula promptly identifies it as an Alran, an S-rank creature capable of producing a vast array of plant seeds. Without hesitation, the Alran releases a dense cloud of sleep-inducing pollen, yet due to Ein's complete resistance to status effects, the attempt proves utterly futile, leaving Pina more frazzled than ever. Without any theatrics, Ein conjures his sword and effortlessly cleaves the monster in two. He then analyzes the creature, extracting the abilities Universal Seeds and Universal Gardens for himself. Just as he completes his evaluation, an object is hurled at his head. Ursula immediately suspects the presence of a concealed enemy, as no attacker can be seen. Pina is baffled by his apparent immunity to the ranged assault. Ein nonchalantly explains that he possesses Ambush Nullify, rendering surprise attacks ineffective. Moreover, conventional strikes are useless against him, thanks to his immovable fortress technique. Unwilling to accept defeat, Pina stubbornly retorts that while he may be impervious to harm, he remains blind to the silent ants lurking in the shadows. However, Ursula swiftly pinpoints the ants' locations and instructs Ein on how to counter them. Following her guidance, he activates Gravitational Well, crushing the creatures effortlessly. Without hesitation, he evaluates them and acquires the abilities Stealth and Back Attack. At this point, Pina erupts into a fit of rage, demanding to know how this boy can dispatch S-rank monsters without even breaking a sweat. Ein casually explains that Yuri had transferred some stolen abilities to him. This revelation sends Pina into a tantrum, furious at her sister, while Yuri tearfully protests, upset that she has disappointed the youngest. Despite the emotional chaos, Pina quickly regains her composure, refusing to let this setback deter her. Determined to reclaim control, she summons the Arshan and the Center to attack, yet with super acceleration, Ein eliminates both in a single strike. Ursula promptly assesses the fallen creatures, allowing Ein to claim Steel Thread and Sticky Thread from the spider, along with magic archery and arrow dodging from the humanoid horse. Now having slain two S-rank monsters in rapid succession, Pina begins to grasp the gravity of the situation. With growing unease, she asks if he is some kind of supreme monster. To this, Ein merely smirks and replies that he is nothing more than a humble evaluator. Meanwhile, in a distant part of the same forest, Zoid trudges forward, utterly drained, until he stumbles over a protruding tree root. Frustrated, he grits his teeth, cursing his misfortune, and as always blaming Ein for his downfall. Hours earlier, upon arriving at the tavern, he was met with icy glares from the patrons, his reputation in shambles after it became known that he had abandoned the group's item collector to die in a dungeon. Near the counter, he was startled to see Jolene after so long, but before he could speak, she cut him off, warning him not to address her. Then two men approached, claiming they had heard he cast a paralyzing spell on Ein and left him for dead. Zoid immediately shifted the blame to Jolene, only for the mage to burst into fake tears, weaving a lie that he had forced her to do it. Desperate to defend himself, Zoid insisted it was all an act, but the crowd had already made up their minds. Overwhelmed by hostility, they threw him out of the tavern. Seething with rage, he lashed out, kicking a barrel and muttering that any of them would have done the same in his position, yet they had the audacity to judge him. Deep down, he wished Ein had simply perished. That would have spared him from this torment, but dwelling on the past was pointless. His only option now was to take on an exceptionally difficult solo mission. one so daunting that upon completion it would restore his lost reputation. With that resolve, the adventurer accepts the perilous mission to hunt an S-rank sea monster in a dungeon crafted by Pina. Aware of the grim odds and the slim chance of survival, he sees no alternative but to prove his worth and restore his tarnished reputation among the guild adventurers. Suddenly, a noise breaks his concentration, and he instinctively leaps, nearly succumbing to despair. However, he quickly regains his composure and leans against the wall to rest. In doing so, he is unintentionally teleported to a forest where he encounters Hein. Realizing he's trapped in a secret dungeon, Zoid understands that he must confront monsters as terrifying as the Hellhounds. Despite the daunting challenge, he has no choice but to face it and demonstrate his capabilities. Yet, as he navigates through the woods, he stumbles into a concealed pit filled with spikes, certain that death is imminent. But in a strange twist, he lands back at the dungeon's entrance instead. At that moment, Pina's voice rings out, explaining that death does not await him in her dungeon. He can attempt as many times as necessary without fear of fatal consequences. Undeterred, Zoid claims to have lost his fear and continues to push forward, making repeated attempts regardless of how many it takes, even if it means facing dozens or even hundreds of failures. After countless failures, the adventurer perseveres despite being exhausted and wounded. As he trudges onward, he encounters a colossal reptile blocking his path. Drawing his sword, he prepares for battle, but is struck with a crushing blow that leaves his left shoulder gravely injured. In agony, Zoid hears the voice of the dungeon spirit, offering him the chance to abandon the mission and be teleported out. Yet the warrior refuses to yield. This time he is determined to prove his worth. The reptile then steps on his hand, worsening the dire situation. Still unwilling to surrender, Zoid closes his eyes, awaiting the inevitable end. But just as despair takes hold, a stream of blood splashes across his face. Opening his eyes, he sees a man effortlessly severing the monster's head with a single strike. Grateful, Zoid mutters a thank you. Ein, turning to face his former companion, is surprised to see him there. He calmly explains that he has come to conquer the dungeon and proceeds to steal the weapon breaker ability from the defeated beast. Meanwhile, Zoid is consumed by a mixture of rage and humiliation. To his utter disdain, the one person he loathes most in the world has saved him. Ein, unaware of Zoid's inner turmoil, asks Yuri to heal the injured warrior, though Yuri is confused about who Ein is addressing. In response, Ein releases the water of the world tree, swiftly regenerating Zoid's grave injuries. With no time to spare, he bids his former group member farewell and hurries on his way. Startled, Zoid calls out to the man, asking him to wait, but Ein calmly touches his forehead and uses the feint skill. As consciousness slips away, Zoid hears the trash picker inform Pina that he has given up and needs to be removed from the dungeon. Meanwhile, Ein presses forward toward the boss gate, and Pina warns him that without defeating the boss, there is no prize. Ein, however, had believed that slaying the boss would seal the world tree, to which Ursula clarifies that it wouldn't be an issue as long as the labyrinth's core is destroyed. Now understanding the true objective, Ein crosses the gate and finds himself in yet another jungle. Suddenly, the ground shakes, and Ein quickly levitates to gain a broader perspective of the space. Ursula explains that the enemy seems to be the very ground beneath them. In that instant, a massive turtle emerges from the earth, prompting Ein to instinctively unleash a barrage of fireballs, which have little to no effect on the colossal creature. Amid the chaos, Ursula detects a familiar energy in the room but has no time to elaborate, as Ein is once again attacked. As the water ball nears, Ein activates super evaluation to slow time and uses parry to deflect the projectile, sending it back toward the attacker. However, once again, no damage is inflicted. Pondering how to defeat such a formidable foe, Ein becomes momentarily distracted and is crushed by a massive stomp. However, the truth is that he didn't move of his own accord. He had already suspected that this monster was merely an illusion. With certainty, he snaps his fingers to activate the Dispel ability, commanding the monster to reveal its true form. The turtle disintegrates, revealing itself to be nothing more than a small harmless creature. What's most surprising, however, is that this tiny animal had even altered Ein's evaluation reading. Now able to properly assess the creature, Ursula is stunned to recognize its true nature. Unaware of its identity, Ein asks if he should eliminate it, and Ursula insists that he should. But out of spite, Ein makes an emotional plea to spare the innocent creature. The mischievous spirit finally relents, conceding to his request. Ein's group finally reaches Pina, who is embraced by Yuri. The younger sister teases the human who had tormented her up until that moment, prompting Yuri to defend her companion. Pina, with a playful grin, jokes that her sister has fallen for the enigmatic adventurer. Soon after, Pina admits that she wishes to join the group, expressing her weariness of remaining underground. She promises to offer her spiritual core to Ein in exchange. Everyone agrees, and it is decided that Pina will officially become part of the team. At that moment, the turtle reveals her true human form, introducing herself as Kurahime, the guardian of Pina and the daughter of the black turtle, one of the 4 sacred beasts. With a warm smile, she affectionately calls Ursula Little Ursula, leaving Ein stunned at the reverence his tutor holds for this guardian. With utmost politeness, Ein requests that Kurahime allow Pina to join the team. The girl agrees, but with a request of her own. She wishes to ask a favor of little Ein. Handing him a philosopher's stone, Kurahime explains that she also wishes to accompany the group, and this stone will make it possible. She further reveals that her ability is Barrier, which will undoubtedly prove valuable on their journey. As the group readily agrees, Kurahime asks Ursula to integrate Pina's spirit core and the philosopher's stone into Ein's artificial eye. Later, as everyone excitedly discusses their forthcoming adventure, Ursula completes the processing of the core, enhancing Ein's eye to level 4. As Ein observes the new additions to the team, he senses that things are about to grow even more exciting with more companions. Most importantly, Yuri appears genuinely happy. However, his mission is far from over. There are still 6 sisters to locate, and it is his responsibility to find them all. Meanwhile, Zoid regains consciousness at the dungeon's entrance, a droplet of water falling onto his face. Tears well up in his eyes as he realizes that the one who saved him was the very scavenger from his former group. The next day, Jasper escorts Ein to sell their mission spoils. Nobles may distrust counterfeit goods, but with Jasper present, all concerns fade. Nearby adventurers are stunned by the wealthy merchant's presence, and the guild's receptionist greets him warmly. She inquires about their business, and Ein, uneasy, states he wishes to sell dungeon loot. Jasper adds that once the sale is finalized, he intends to repurchase the items himself. The receptionist checks Ein's ID and is perplexed. An F-rank adventurer shouldn't be capable of such feats. Suspicious, she questions if Jasper is being deceived. The surrounding adventurers scorn Ein's low rank, but Jasper urges him to present his haul. Ein raises an emblem, then casually scatters the materials onto the counter. Silence ensues. At the center of the pile rests the immortal king's skull. However, due to Ein's low rank, everyone assumes the items are stolen, deepening his frustration. This was exactly why he avoided the guild, fearing judgment and ridicule. Just then, a woman enters and demands an end to the nonsense, calling it foolish to judge based on guild rank. The room falls silent as attendees recognize Megan, the capital's guildmaster. She approaches, her gaze lingering on Ein's unusual eye, making him fear she has discerned its artificial nature. Meanwhile, the receptionist evaluates the items with the eye of truth, confirming their authenticity. The adventurers, once scornful, now fall silent in shame. Seizing the moment, Jasper uses his reputation to vouch for Ein's strength, prompting the counter girl to apologize for her earlier remarks. Megan asks the boy to forgive the receptionist, assuring him she will be reprimanded for her arrogance and for condemning someone based on their rank. After all, while fate may be predetermined at birth, life is exciting because some defy it. Ein, deeply moved, expresses his gratitude, relieved to know people like Megan exist in the guild. Amused by his words, Megan grabs him by the collar, remarking that he is exactly the kind of adventurer she wants around. Sensing they will cross paths again soon, she takes her leave. The receptionist asks Ein to wait in the lounge while the items are appraised. However, before that, Jasper requests he present the treasures obtained from the secret dungeon. At this revelation, both the staff and adventurers erupt in shock. Few can achieve such a feat. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, Ein panics and bolts. At night, he takes a well-earned bath to unwind and reflect, though he despises being underestimated. Excessive praise is just as unwelcome. Suddenly, Yuri appears, remarking on the beauty of the night, startling Ein, who hadn't noticed her presence moments later. Pina surfaces in the water, teasing him about his reaction to seeing his sister in her natural state. Ein demands to know why they are in the men's bath, to which Pina replies that nature spirits shouldn't be bound by human rules. As if that weren't enough, Ursula arrives to scold him for looking where he shouldn't. Overwhelmed, Ein leaves the bath even more drained. Only for Kurahime to appear last, striking up a conversation. She admits it's been ages since she's seen such liveliness, affirming that entrusting Pina to him was a wise choice. When Ein asks if Pina is like a daughter to Kohim, Kurahime confirms it, explaining that the Guardians created the spiritual cores, and the egos within them are the girls, making Kohim Pina's mother. Curious, Ein inquires if there are more pairs besides them, Yuri and Ursula. Kurahime reveals there are only 7, which confuses him, as he had heard the first tree dried up long ago. She confirms this but clarifies that the spiritual core wasn't entirely destroyed. Their first spirit likely still exists. Echidna, the eldest sister, is out there with her guardian, though no one knows where. Furthermore, the locations of the dungeons housing the remaining trees remain unknown. Ein refuses to abandon the search, firm in his resolve, especially since he owes Yuri and wants to help her reunite with her family. Reflecting on this, Kohim notes that Ein possesses a rare ability to bring people together, regardless of his strength or other talents. The next day, Ein meets Jasper to gather information but is startled by Megan's presence. The Guildmaster seeks his aid in a matter only he can handle. It concerns the Behemoth, an ancient dragon born from the demon lord Macaron. After Macaron was sealed, the dragon vanished, yet it has resurfaced, targeting merchants and caravans. Thus Megan assigns Ein an sulfur monosulfide rank mission to confront the Behemoth. Jasper warns that he may not survive and laments that Ein had once sworn to avoid guild affairs. Even so, Ein accepts, knowing the guild's dire predicament. Delighted, Jasper praises his friend's noble heart, affirming he is worthy of his power. Meanwhile, Megan is unsurprised. After all, Ein had already piqued her interest. Telepathically, Ursula remarks on how much the young man has matured while the Guildmaster greets him, relying on his strength. The scene shifts toward their objective as the adventurer endures the oppressive desert heat. Despite the ordeal, Ursula reassures them that the Behemoth is near. She explains that this earth dragon can absorb magic, stealing its power and transforming the air into spiral bullets, projectiles capable of piercing space itself. Realizing the creature absorbs magic, Ein acknowledges his reliance on his sword and physical skills. Ursula adds that during the day, the Behemoth buries itself beneath the sand, and it's Ein's task to draw it out. Following the plan, Ein strikes the sand with a Nova Strike, creating a crater deep enough to reach the inferno below. From the depths, the creature emerges, enraged and curious about the audacity of the human who dared to disturb its rest. Ein soon faces a being unfamiliar with defeat. Brought to life by the Demon Lord, the Behemoth has never encountered an opponent stronger than itself, its overwhelming power crushing any threat. This invincibility has left the dragon bored. However, sensing weakness in the human before it, the Behemoth notices Ein's relatively strong magic, despite its ineffectiveness against the creature. Curious, the dragon demands to know who Ein believes he is to challenge it. Ein introduces himself and declares his intent to defeat the monster, prompting the Behemoth to laugh and remind him that it was created by the Demon Lord. Ein responds, suggesting the Demon Lord must be no more challenging. Enraged, the Earth Dragon unleashes spiral bullets, but Ein remains unfazed, assuring the creature that its efforts are in vain. Confident of victory on its sandy domain, the Behemoth attacks. Ein dodges and closes the gap, severing the dragon's left arm, as durable as orichalcum. Furious, the Behemoth retreats underground, believing it has outwitted the boy. Striking from below, it swallows Ein whole, convinced of its triumph. Yet as it revels in its supposed victory, Ein casts a spell that causes the dragon's head to explode. Still alive, the Behemoth's shattered eye locks onto Ein, realizing the look before it is not that of one consumed, but of a devourer. In that moment, the creature grasps the concept of defeat. Completely flayed and gasping for answers, it asks how the human triumphed. Ein reveals he cast an ultimate spell inside the dragon's body, having deduced that the Behemoth could only absorb magic through its outer skin. He survived the blast by activating a barrier just before the explosion. On the topic, Ein asks if the Behemoth hadn't noticed the illusion spell he cast earlier. While the dragon burrowed underground, it had been pursuing Ein's mirage. The truly powerful creature would have recognized the illusion, and Ein concludes the Behemoth's loss was due to its arrogance toward humanity. Finally understanding its defeat, the Behemoth watches its body disintegrate like black sand drifting to the sky, experiencing sensations it had never known: pain, suffering, agony, and defeat. The dragon hadn't anticipated how difficult these feelings would be to endure, especially the looming presence of death which approached like a horse racing down a hill. After the Behemoth's departure, Ursula asks why Ein appears unsettled. He admits the dragon was vile but wonders how it might have turned out under different circumstances and questions what he himself would be like had he never encountered the World Tree. Impatient with the philosophical musings, Ursula asserts that such a creature would never change and urges Ein to assess the Behemoth's abilities. Upon doing so, Ein is impressed by the quality of the techniques, including the spiral bullets. Meanwhile, Yuri, Kohim, and Pina arrive to bolster his spirits, but he responds that his success was only possible because of the strength they provide. Back in the kingdom, Ein answers Claudia's request to meet her father. To his surprise, the king himself appears. Upon seeing the monarch's intimidating presence, Ein panics and bows frantically. However, the king proves to be kind and composed, not at all what Ein had expected. Relaxing, Ein sits down and Claudia, speaking of being the boy's second wife, takes the opportunity to embrace him. Not wanting to be left out, Yuri does the same. Finally, the king expresses his joy at having such an esteemed figure as a potential father-in-law. Acknowledging Ein's role in defeating the dreaded Behemoth, he remarks that the young man matches his daughter's description. handsome, skilled, and humble, never arrogant despite his immense strength. The king also notes that the behemoth was not Ain's sole accomplishment, as he had recently rescued his daughter. As a token of gratitude, His Majesty bows to the adventurer, leaving Ain flustered and requesting he rise. Ain humbly attributes his success to Yuri, prompting the king to also thank the spirit. Impressed by Ain's humility and his willingness to credit others, the monarch declares that Ain will one day become an important figure. In recognition, the king gifts Ain a watch bearing the royal crest, granting him free passage throughout the kingdom. Meanwhile in the streets, people discuss Ain's defeat of the behemoth. As Zoid walks by, he overhears one such conversation, bumping into a man and falling to the ground. Seething with hatred, he can't escape the constant chatter about his former companion. Frustrated, the adventurer laments that he should have stayed with his garbage collector job to keep Ain weak and in check. It is here he encounters a nature spirit named Midna, who offers to assist him with his dark mission. Meanwhile at home, Yuri notices Pina skipped washing her hair after showering. Pina dismisses it as a hassle and, as always, asks her sister to do it for her. Kind-hearted Yuri obliges, then asks if she thinks Ain is okay as he still hasn't woken up. Pina reassures her, reminding Yuri that even their mother said it was just exhaustion. Yet, seeing her sister's concern, she suggests cooking something to speed up his recovery. Loving the idea, Pina eagerly heads out to shop, especially since it's been ages since they last ate together. Yuri hesitates, wondering if leaving Ain alone is wise given the dangers outside, but Pina is confident they'll be fine. Meanwhile, in Echidna S, she mysteriously understands Zoid harbors fury toward a certain evaluator and for reasons unknown resolves to help him. In the next scene, Ain drifts through a dark void until Zoid's urgent voice commands him to move. Suddenly, a vision unfolds, his former leader in the cave treating subordinates with disdain while Ain silently endured. Another memory surfaces, Ain back at the Adventurers Guild, receiving a meager reward after a routine mission. A faint smile appears on his past self's face. The present Ain scorns this, condemning it as the worst reason to smile. Zoe had once told him to be grateful for even scraps, as people like him weren't worth a single coin, forever the weakest, perpetually beneath everyone. The scene shifts, hellhounds tear into his body, and he realizes this would have been his fate without Yura. Suddenly his core reanimates and a voice echoes. He was fortunate to obtain the spiritual eye, but that didn't mean he had grown stronger. Trash from a worthless class remains trash, doomed to failure no matter how much it struggles. Ain jolts awake, screaming from his nightmare. Unbothered, Ursula continues reading and casually asks if he's alright. Since Ain has no clear recollection, she explains that he utterly drained himself and slept far too long. An utterly foolish move. Apologizing, Ain asks about Yuri. Ursula informs him she went to town with Pina. Concerned for her safety, he hesitates, but the spirit assures him she tracks her daughter's location in real time and can appear instantly if needed. She also advises him to rest longer given his restless sleep. Ain then confesses his nightmare, admitting that meeting Yuri and Ursula altered his fate, yet deep down he believes he should have ended up in a hellhound's stomach. In truth, he was merely lucky. His survival owed entirely to the spirit's power. Despite everything, he still feels weak and worthless, just as Zoid had said. Back in Echidna, she firmly declares her intent to help Zoid exact revenge on the man he despises. She reveals that Ain possesses a spiritual eye, the key to his effortless rise in power. Furious, Zoid slams the ground. Something about this doesn't add up. There's no way someone as weak as Ain could suddenly become so formidable. Seizing the moment, Echidna asks if he too desires a spiritual eye. Without hesitation he agrees, his excitement palpable. With a sly smile, the spirit unveils the eye, its power radiating intensely, making Zoid tremble with vengeful longing. Then she embeds it into his forehead, triggering a grotesque transformation. Unfazed by his monstrous new form, Zoid leaps skyward, astonished by his newfound lightness, as if shedding his human constraints to fuse with an overwhelming force. Without delay, he dashes across the city's rooftops, eager to test his abilities, until he unexpectedly crosses paths with Jolene. Zoid lunges at Jolene. An adventurer beside her instinctively draws his sword, but before he can react, Zoid rips off his head in an instant. Turning to Jolene, he taunts her, asking what she'll do now without protection. Despite his distorted voice, Jolene recognizes her former teammate and frantically apologizes. She even offers to take full blame for casting the paralysis spell on Ain. Desperate, she pleads for mercy, promising to be his woman again if he spares her. But Zoid has no interest in words. He swiftly devours a mage's head next. Elsewhere, Yuri pauses, reflecting on her reliance on others. She resolves to become stronger, not just to protect herself but to repay Ain for all he's done for her. Amid her conversation with Pina, a sudden explosion throws the city into chaos. As panic spreads, Yuri spots an injured boy and heals him immediately. But with countless others in need, the spirit urges the child to flee while she continues aiding the wounded. Observing the destruction from afar, Idna contacts Zoid through telepathy, ordering him to stop toying with the weaklings and target the spirits. If he eliminates them, Ein will lose access to their power, reverting to the failure he has always been. Zoid instantly appears behind Yuri, ready to strike her down, but Pina reacts swiftly, ensnaring him in a magical barrier to protect her sister. As they retreat, Zoid furiously pounds the shield, attempting to break free. However, Idna informs him that brute force is futile. He must wield the power granted to him. The direct counter to spiritual energy, the anti-spiritual arts. Dark energy surges from Zoid as he effortlessly shatters the barrier. With a single bound, he closes the distance once more. Pina erects another shield, but Zoid, now wielding his anti-spiritual power, not only tears through it with ease but also delivers a crushing blow to Pina. With Pina down, the monster seizes Yuri, condemning her for bestowing such power upon a worthless assessor. Just as he prepares to end her, Ein intervenes, delivering 2 rapid sword strikes that force Zoid to release her. Ursula and Kahim arrive alongside him, while Ein commands everyone to enter his eye, positioning himself alone against the formidable foe. Ein, activating his appraisal skill, identifies the enemy as a Trema, though some details remain obscured. Harula speculates that an advanced cloaking spell is concealing crucial information powerful enough to deceive even the spiritual eye. Regardless, Zoid lunges at Ein, who counters with a precise parry, sending the opponent crashing into a house. Unscathed, Zoid rises and conjures a magical barrier, but Pina warns that such defenses are useless against his adversary. Without hesitation, Zoid's tails tear through the shield, wounding Ein in the process. Stunned, Ein realizes just how effortlessly his protection was dismantled. Zoid sneers, mocking Ein as futile defenses against anti-spiritual arts, declaring his inevitable demise. He taunts Ein, questioning if that's all the so-called trash picker can muster. Confused, Ein struggles to grasp how the Chimera knows him, but upon analyzing the voice, realization strikes. Zoid stands before him, grinning. Zoid boasts that he too was blessed by a spirit and has ascended. He then hurls a devastating punch, sending Ein hurtling through the air. Seeing his prey still breathing, Zoid unleashes a relentless barrage, forcing Ein to retreat against his overwhelming might. Gaining distance, Ursula urges Ein to kill the monster before it kills him, yet Ein hesitates. Beneath the Chimera exterior, Zoid is still human. Zoid, however, holds no such reservations. Without pause, he charges again, obliterating an entire house in the process. Zoid revels in his newfound power, yet sneers at the fact that Ein stands as his equal. What baffles him is why the assessor refuses to wield such strength for his own gain. As proof, he gestures toward Jolene, boasting that his actions were driven by vengeance. With this power, every hardship he endured now feels insignificant. Regardless of Ein's denials, Zoid is certain the former trash picker craves revenge against his old leader. Infuriated, Ein roars that it isn't true. But as his leader's corpse appears before him, a chilling question is thrown back. Is he truly certain? After all, Ein is nothing but a low-class failure, a joke to everyone, forever branded as a trash picker. The words echo endlessly in his mind, forcing him to clutch his ears, but the voices remain relentless. His reanimated leader sneers, claiming Ein is no different from the monster before him. Zoid asserts that they are no different, both willing to do anything to survive, devoid of dignity or pride. No matter how strong Ein becomes, he remains human trash. At that moment, Yuri steps out of the spiritual eye, fiercely defending her friend. She corrects Zoid. Ein has always been strong and kind, never one to hold grudges. Ursula follows, reminding Ein that his strength isn't just from his abilities but from the growth of his heart. Unlike Zoid, he has never harmed those weaker than himself. In truth, Ein has always sought to repay the power Yuri granted him. His courage to do what is right wasn't bestowed by any spirit. It was something he carried and nurtured within himself all along. The apparition resurfaces, urging Ein not to be fooled, insisting she knows him better than anyone. But Yuri counters, declaring that if she can stand there today, reunited with her family, it's because she met Ein. Thanks to him, she was able to change her fate. Hearing this, Ein breaks down, realizing he has truly grown strong. Yet Zoid and the apparition persist, branding him nothing more than a worthless worm, just like them. Ein interjects, admitting that surrendering to such a belief would be easier. He has always despised how one's fate is dictated by their assigned occupation. He too once possessed the worst talent and the lowest rank. Indeed, it was Yuri and Ursula who granted him strength. But that same strength made him keep rejecting who he truly is. Yet the nature spirits believe in him. And Ein is overwhelmed with the desire to honor their trust by becoming the Ein they always saw in him. With that resolve, he unleashes a spiritual force so immense that his eerie apparition vanishes into the darkness. While even Zoid trembles before the sheer intensity of his power, Harula, proud, acknowledges that Ein has finally awakened as a true guardian. Ein, now resolute, vows to never hesitate again. He must grow strong enough to protect everyone. Recognizing his growth, Ursula instructs him that he can now wield 100% of the spirit's power. Still convinced of his own superiority, Zoid disregards the spectacle and charges. However, Ein counters with a single punch so devastating that it hurls the monster an unfathomable distance. Undeterred, Zoid lunges again as Ein conjures another magical barrier. Expecting the same easy victory, the monster strikes. Only to find his attack utterly ineffective, Ursula reveals that Zoid's blessing is merely 10%, making him nothing more than Ein's plaything, completely outmatched. Panicked, Zoid desperately begs the nature spirit for more power. Idna obliges, granting him an even greater surge of strength, triggering a grotesque transformation. Drooling, the chimera proclaims himself the strongest and charges once more. But Ein, unfazed, summons his sword, vowing to end it. Blue energy radiates from his body, and the moment Zoid approaches, Ein delivers a single, decisive strike, erasing the chimera from existence. Zoid finds himself kneeling in a vast spiritual plane when Ein appears, extending a hand toward him. Defeated, Zoid asks why Ein insists on saving him. The former trash picker simply replies that he needs no reason. With a bitter smile, Zoid admits that this very trait infuriates him. Ein acts self-righteous yet remains weak. Unfazed, Ein counters that helping others isn't wrong. Even if one is weak and lacking strength doesn't mean surrendering courage. He's exhausted from running, from believing otherwise. That's what changed him entirely. And if he can change, so can Zoid. It all begins with taking the hand before him. For now, that's enough. Zoid hesitates, but as a tear escapes, he finally clasps his former companion's hand. Back in reality, Ein reflects. Someone exploited Zoid's fragile heart to grant him power, yet the culprit and their motives remain a mystery. As he collapses in the capital, Idna reappears at the battlefield, now the heart of the city, and retrieves the spiritual eye she had bestowed upon Zoid. With it, she successfully extracts Ein's combat data, her true objective all along. The only unforeseen event was Zoid's survival. At least she ensured his memories as a demon were sealed, eliminating any risk of exposure. Setting that aside, Idna concedes that Ein's move was ingenious, embedding purifying energy into his final strike. Smirking, she tells Ein to endure, because she intends to bring that being back. The next day, Yuri approached Ein as he sipped tea, cheeks flushed, and hastily requested a kiss. Nervously sweating, Ein urged her to ease up on the jokes, but she insisted, explaining it was part of an ancient ritual binding spirits to their guardians. Suddenly, Ursula appeared, remarking that while unpleasant, the act was essential. She revealed that Ein, as a guardian in training, shared a fragile bond with Yuri. The girl had shouldered the responsibility of shielding him from harm, regardless of the extent of magical power he gained. Realizing this, Ein rose and apologized for the trouble he had caused. Ursula added that now, with Ein fully awakened as a guardian, their connection had solidified, making the ritual crucial to strengthen the bond. Believing it akin to a knight's oath of loyalty, Ein saw nothing unusual about the custom. He soon noticed Pina and Kurahime ahead, eagerly anticipating the moment, which left him mortified. Pina nudged them, requesting space. Kurahime complied silently, though she found the elder guardian too composed, despite a stranger preparing to kiss her daughter. Ursula retorted that Ein was no stranger and the ritual was merely a kiss. Anything more and he'd be a dead man. With that, Ursula exited with Pina and Kurahime, leaving the ritual's central figures alone. As it was Yuri's first kiss, she asked Ein to be gentle, puckering her lips with youthful awkwardness. Ein, caught off guard, expecting a simple hand kiss, steadied himself, recalling his duty as a guardian and the spirit's need for the ritual. He leaned in slightly, but his nerves betrayed him, causing him to stumble and accidentally brush a kiss against her forehead. A radiant glow then engulfed the room. In that instant he awakened his divine eye, a superior evolution of the spiritual eye. Yuri, overwhelmed with joy, seemed ready to soar beyond the heavens. Elsewhere, Echidna arrived at a shadowy mansion, greeted by Baron Falco, a humanoid bird. She delivered a decree from the demon lord, commanding Falco to eliminate Ein. Despite the royal order, the Baron questioned why he should personally handle such an insignificant primate. Echidna clarified that though it seemed minor, the boy was powerful enough to single-handedly defeat the ancient dragon, Behemoth. Falco remained unfazed, dismissing dragons as mere beasts, far inferior to demons like himself. Echidna flattered Falco, praising his confidence as the reason both she and the demon lord placed such trust in him. The compliment easily swayed the bird, who basked in the attention. Seizing the moment, Echidna emphasized that only he could fulfill this mission, prompting Falco to vow success before stepping into a portal to the human realm. Harnessing his powerful wind ability, Falco soared through the sky at such staggering speed he became invisible to the naked eye. Within moments he confronted the primate who had vanquished Behemoth, formally introducing himself as a member of the 5 demonic noble classes and declaring his intent to kill. Ein casually asked him to quiet down as people were sleeping. Enraged by the insolence, Falco lunged with razor-sharp claws, but Ein swiftly retaliated, landing a slap that sent the bird hurtling away. Bleeding from his beak, Falco reeled in disbelief that his swift assault had failed. Ein stood over the weakened demon, mocking him for belonging to the Baron class, the lowest among nobles. Unleashing a spiral bullet, he inflicted heavy bleeding, and Falco suspected this overwhelming power stemmed from Ein's eye. Slamming the demon to the ground, Ein analyzed the wind ability and confirmed Falco was targeting only him, prompting him to release everyone from his eye's hold. Noticing the bleeding demon, Pina remarked that Ein had truly become a guardian, already surpassing Ursula in strength. Unwilling to concede, Ursula swiftly tackled him, locking him in a leg hold to prove she hadn't fallen behind. The following day, Ein visited the castle and reunited with Claudia, who welcomed him warmly. He expressed his wish to access the Forbidden Library, a vast archive reserved for the royal family. With a silver watch bearing the king's emblem, Ein now held entry to places once beyond reach. Soon he arrived at the entrance, where Claudia explained that only those approved by both the king and the librarian could enter, meaning she had to remain outside. Though Ein had the king's permission, he was unsure how to secure the librarian's approval. Claudia advised that passing through the door would suffice, so he did just that, assuming all was well. He called for Yuri to join him, but she collided with an invisible barrier, blocking her entry. Ursula appeared, revealing that the bond between her daughter and Ein had abruptly severed, and she too couldn't teleport inside. Realizing even Ursula couldn't breach the barrier, Ein chose to stay vigilant and venture alone. Advancing further, he was stunned by the library's vastness, contemplating the challenge of uncovering the clue he sought. Suddenly, an unfamiliar girl plummeted from a great height, prompting Ein to rush forward and catch her before impact. Grateful yet embarrassed, she thanked him, her ears tinged red, leaving Ein equally flustered. She introduced herself as Alice, explaining she had been reading when she accidentally fell. As the librarian, she knew the exact location of every book, and effortlessly returned the one she'd been reading with a magic wand. Ein thanked her for granting him entry, but with a solemn expression she lowered her head and inquired about his purpose. He explained he was researching secret dungeons to help someone dear find their family. Alice handed him a book containing the information he sought. Then unexpectedly she asked if Yuri was well, leaving Ein stunned as he hadn't mentioned her. Alice recognized the aura of Yuri's spiritual eye, revealing she too was a spirit of a world tree. Hours later, Ein and his companions explored a dungeon suggested by the librarian. Though it hardly seemed secret, Yuri doubted her sister had mistakenly led them there, prompting Ein to decide to return and question Alice directly. Regretful that Yuri couldn't accompany him, he vowed to find a way. Content, a spirit placed her trust in her guardian. Meanwhile, at the library, Alice's mother questioned why her daughter was spying on Yuri with her 1,000-mile eye. She also wondered why Alice hadn't given Ein the book on their secret dungeon if she wished to see Yuri and the others. Alice confessed she was terrified of getting involved with the outside world. Lacking the power to fight, all she could do was watch from a distance. After all, the world was teeming with humans, a race Alice deeply resented as they were responsible for her sister Ikid's death. Her mother argued that Ein was different, though she understood her daughter's lingering distrust. Earlier, when Alice had revealed herself as a spirit of a world tree, her mother appeared, scolding her for not announcing visitors, especially since Ein hadn't even been offered welcome tea. She introduced herself as Akahane, Alice's guardian and daughter of the Red Bird. Noticing her daughter's rare joy in Ein's presence, Akahane pointed it out, highlighting how long it had been since such happiness graced her. Observing Alice's melancholy expression, Ein wondered how anyone could perceive joy in those hollow pufferfish dead eyes. Anyway, Ein mentioned that Yuri and Pina awaited outside, but Akahane clarified that her daughter couldn't meet her sisters here. Though it seemed to reside within the king's castle, this realm existed separately, a concealed dungeon linked by a portal enabling travel between worlds. However, this portal was unique. Only humans could traverse it, and only those sanctioned by the king and Alice were granted entry, as this place safeguarded the kingdom's deepest secrets. In return for channeling the World Tree's magic to protect this sanctum, the two spirits were allowed to remain and immerse themselves in endless books. However, if Alice or Yuri crossed the portal, the centuries-old pact would shatter instantly. In essence, for Alice to reunite with her sisters without breaking the bond, Ein needed to locate the dungeon's true entrance and follow the rightful path. He asked what would happen if he simply took Alice out, but her mother explained it wasn't that simple. Alice was fragile and wouldn't survive long outside, especially without the will to leave herself. With that, Ein asked Alice directly if she wished to see her sisters. Her silence revealed her fear, though the desire was clear. After all, stepping into the unknown was terrifying, something Ein understood all too well from his own past. With Yuri, Ursula, and the others by his side, Ein had found the courage to move forward. Just as he had taken that leap, Alice could too. and when she did, he vowed to be there, ready to guide her to her sisters safely. With that, Ayn asked for her trust, wondering if she would join him. Her silence spoke of hesitation. Trust couldn't be granted so quickly. Still, he resolved to uncover the library's true location by exploring the secret dungeons detailed in the book Alice had given him. Back in the present, Akahane assured Alice she didn't need to leave if she wasn't ready. Though it was clear she had feelings for the boy, her ears betrayed her heart. Blushing, Alice confessed she had read about it in books. When she saw Ayn, her heart raced, joy surged so strong it hurt, and her once colorless world burst into vivid hues. Her mother reminded her that some lessons couldn't be learned from books, only lived through experience. She urged her daughter to go with the human, assuring her that if anything went wrong, she could always return. At that moment, Ayn arrived at the library seeking answers. Akahane encouraged Alice to summon the courage to take the next step. Alice, finally resolute, declared her trust in Ayn and voiced her desire to see the outside world. With that, Ayn lifted the spirit and carried her out. Akahane followed, revealing her daughter's spiritual core. Without it, Alice couldn't leave. Since Akahane couldn't use teleportation magic, she entrusted Ayn with a copy of herself to protect the fragile spirit. With everything prepared, the group set out to reunite Alice with her family. Initially, all went smoothly, but soon realized he had underestimated Alice's frailty. It wasn't long before exhaustion overtook her, forcing him to carry her on his back to continue the journey. Without Ursula's aid, A faced numerous obstacles alone, defeating every creature in his path. Eventually, he confronted his samurai adversary in a fierce, evenly matched duel. Realizing pure swordplay wouldn't secure victory, A hurled his katana, forcing the opponent to dodge, only for the samurai to counter by launching his own blade behind Ayn. Seizing the opening, Ayn unleashed a blink strike, landing a decisive kick that ended the fight. Noting the spirit's astonishment at his prowess, he absorbed 2 skills from his fallen foe: expansive cut and draw sword attack. Alice gently touched Ayn's face, prompting Akahane to explain her daughter's concern for his well-being. Ayn took Alice's hand, reassuring her that he was unharmed, leaving Akahane inwardly jealous, suspecting the man was a natural charmer. Soon they reached a colossal gate, and Ayn declared they were nearing the surface. Sensing Alice's melancholy, Akahane guessed it stemmed from the thought that Ayn would no longer need to carry her. Ayn quickly eased her worries, promising to carry her whenever she wished, which visibly comforted the girl. Amused by the budding connection, Akahane teased that her daughter seemed to be living a real-life romantic comedy, only for Alice to spin her mother into the air with her wand, playfully reining in her enthusiasm. Hours later, at Ayn's mansion on the surface, Alice finally reunited with Yuri, who embraced her warmly after so long. Yet Alice gently pushed her away, not wanting to get sweaty from the close contact. Meanwhile, Akahane engaged in light-hearted conversation with Kurohime, affectionately addressing each other as AA and Kuro. When Akahane spoke with Ursula, Ayn noticed the clear hierarchy among the guardians, with Ursula showing deference as if Akahane outranked her. Denied her sister's hug, Yuri instead embraced Ayn, gratefully thanking him for reuniting her family. Noticing Alice's jealous gaze, Pina teasingly hugged Ayn right in front of her but slyly left his right arm free for anyone bold enough to sneak in. Yuri declared the spot as hers, but Alice swiftly stepped in, wrapping Ayn in a firm hug, fueling Pina's teasing even further. When Ayn urged her to ease up, Pina slyly questioned if he was defending Alice out of affection. The remark instantly heightened the tension, putting all the spirits on edge and leaving Ayn cornered and flustered. As the group congregated in the sauna, the girls seized the opportunity to interrogate Ayn about his true feelings for Alice. Cornered even in his supposed refuge, Ayn found no escape as they relentlessly pressed for an answer. When he attempted to flee, the women blocked his path, refusing to let him go without a confession. Fortunately, Ursula intervened, urging them to respect his privacy. Though relieved, Ayn faced a new dilemma. His gaze had nowhere safe to land as every direction presented an awkward sight that threatened his composure. To make matters worse, Pina stubbornly remained on his lap, playfully teasing him about his visible discomfort. Meanwhile, Yuri assumed the redness on his face was due to a cold and innocent misinterpretation that Pina secretly envied. Akahane, experiencing a sauna for the first time, found it peculiar yet exhilarating, while Kurahime intensified the heat by dousing the coals with more water. Determined to escape at last, Ayn prepared to leave, but Alice, leaning against him, appeared unwell. Insisting she would endure like the rest, she refused to acknowledge her own limits. Yet in truth, she simply longed to remain by his side. Witnessing the seemingly romantic moment, Pina and Yuri embraced Alice, rejoicing in the chance to continue their adventures together. Ayn acknowledged their sentiment. The sisters had reunited and deserved to celebrate. Meanwhile, Akahane pointed out that Alice's heartfelt confession had yet to reach its intended recipient, while Ayn requested Ursula to process her spiritual core. Akahane then stepped forward presenting a philosopher's stone, insisting he would need it. As Alice's mother, she wished to assist. Ursula agreed to perform the procedure and asked Ayn to bend down, but as he did, Alice stumbled, inadvertently pulling his shorts down. The girl's reactions varied. Alice noted his size exceeded what she had read in books. Pina murmured, "Wow." Kurahime stifled laughter behind her hand, and Akahane admitted she expected something more intriguing. Meanwhile, Yuri promptly fainted. Later, Ayn crossed paths with Megan and Jasper, who couldn't help but remark on how much stronger the boys seemed, albeit through peculiar means such as a group hug. Jasper then revealed that Ayn had received a direct request from the king via the guild before inquiring whether he had ever encountered a demon. The hero's mind immediately recalled Falco, the fierce winds. According to Megan, centuries ago, humanity's heroes had banished demons by erecting a dimensional barrier. However, recent sightings in Rick's domain signaled a resurgence. Ayn was tasked with eliminating these formidable foes, as none but him could stand against them. While he expressed his willingness to aid Rick's people, Ursula abruptly intervened, reminding him of their true objective. Ayn countered that he too had once been an outsider when the spirits first saved him. More than anyone, he understood the despair of facing an overwhelming enemy. That had been his reality. Though he stood there only because of the spirit's aid, he felt compelled to repay their kindness. Upon leaving the spiritual eye, another spirit affirmed that this path was wise. With that, Ursula relented, agreeing to assist, as Yuri's predicament mirrored theirs. Resolute, Ayn vowed to vanquish Rick's demons. Meanwhile, in a distant forest, a weary group trudged onward. A child named Mia, clutching her father's hand, whimpered about her hunger. The man reassured her, promising they were heading to a place brimming with delicious food. Mia's eyes sparkled as she likened it to the paradise where her mother resided. With a gentle smile, her father affirmed it was something very much like that. They soon arrived at a site where massive boulders stood in ritualistic formation. A man suddenly shouted, announcing Lord Hydra's arrival, prompting everyone to kneel. Curious, Mia asked who this lord was, and her father explained that he was the serpent god who protected their village. Another villager then urged him to present the sacrifice. With a solemn tone, the father beckoned Mia forward, telling her the god would take her to heaven, though he himself could not accompany her. Strangely untroubled, Mia smiled at the thought of reuniting with her mother. She recalled how her father wept daily after her mother's passing and wished he wouldn't cry when she left, as she wouldn't be there to wipe his tears. Without hesitation, she ran toward Lord Hydra, who grumbled about the meager offering after such a long wait. Clasping her hands in prayer, Mia asked the god to take her to heaven, but at the last moment her father rushed forward, declaring he couldn't go through with it. Alarmed, the other villagers rose, demanding to know what he was doing. This was their only means of survival. Desperate, the father pleaded for Hydra to devour him instead. The serpent's many heads debated, each with its own stance, until one reminded the others of the pact. A woman must be offered each month. Since the deal had been broken, humanity would now pay the ultimate price. At that moment, one of Hydra's heads exhaled a thick purple smoke, sending the men into a frenzied stupor, their bodies collapsing as they drooled uncontrollably. Mia, bewildered, questioned whether this was truly divine behavior. Regardless, one of Hydra's heads lunged at her, jaws wide, only for Ayn to intervene at the last moment, erecting a luminous magical barrier to shield the child. Seeing a cloaked figure radiating with light, Mia mistook him for a deity. Her soul instinctively identified the enemy, and sulfur monosulfide class ancient Hydra, capable of producing both lethal venom and potent elixirs, its mucus-coated skin brimming with toxic death. Ayn processed this revelatine and urgently called for Yuri's aid. Miraculously, those afflicted by the toxin were purified and managed to regain their footing. Hydra recoiled in disbelief. How could a mere warrior dispel its poison with a mere glance? Ayn, too, was awed by the sheer potency of Yuri's healing spell. Without hesitation, he commanded the villagers to escape while he confronted the beast. But the Hydra scoffed at the idea that a mere human could challenge him, confident that his venom alone would be enough. However, Ayn swiftly unleashed his sword draw technique, his strike fracturing into countless slashes that shredded the Hydra into pieces. Amidst their triumphant celebration, the men rejoiced like never before. One recalling that this warrior was renowned in the royal capital as the slayer of ancient dragons. Within the hero's mind, Ursula analyzed his technique, noting how he had infused his blade with Yuri's purification magic to counteract the venom and land a decisive strike. The unexpected praise left him momentarily flattered, only to be startled upon realizing that Ursula had never once commended him before. Nevertheless, the spirit assessed the Hydra's abilities, its dual nature of producing both poison and medicine, as well as its connectine to rituals of cleansing and rest. Turning to the villagers, Ein requested an audience with their leader. However, the once jubilant peasants immediately grew somber, bowing their heads in silence. Mia's father expressed his gratitude, acknowledging that they would have perished without Ion's intervention. Yet, deep down he wondered if death would have been the kinder fate. As the villagers dispersed, Mia wriggled free from her father's arms and ran to Ein, her eyes brimming with tears as she expressed heartfelt thanks to the one who had saved them. The warrior humbly dismissed the notion of divinity, yet vowed to protect the smiles of those around him. An intent, he claimed, as resolute as a god's will. His words filled Mia with comfort, and she returned to her father, her heart at peace, while Ein still had to seek out the lord of the domain. After a lengthy trek, they arrive at an unexpectedly pristine mansion, immaculate and inviting, a stark contrast to the surrounding desolation. The boy steps inside, presenting his Adventurer's Guild ID, and is warmly received by a man who feels honored to meet the renowned slayer of ancient dragons. Introducing himself as Nigan von Rashik, the host graciously offers cake and tea. However, upon tasting the dessert, the boy is met with an overwhelmingly salty flavor, yet when asked for his opinion he feigns approval. Grateful for the praise, Nigan takes a bite himself, only to collapse instantly, overwhelmed by the sheer saltiness and the humiliation of having mistaken salt for sugar. Admitting his chronic clumsiness, Nigan shifts the conversatine to a more serious note. When questioned about the sudden surge of demons in the region, he appears genuinely perplexed. Rick borders Icewood, a monster-infested territory, so he suspects that fear has led people to mistake monsters for demons, triggering false alarms. Still, the boy insists on investigating, especially given that he had just vanquished a Hydra before reaching town. Nigan reacts with deep despair upon learning of the Hydra's demise, lamenting that its absence will leave the village vulnerable to monster attacks. His distress infuriates the boy, who reminds him that the creature demanded human sacrifices. How could he stand idly by while a child was nearly devoured before his eyes? Nigan, however, remains resolute. To him, the choice is clear. Sacrificing one to save 100 is a necessary evil. Unless the boy intends to stay and protect the village indefinitely, his role ends once the enemy falls, while the villagers must continue surviving. As lord of this land, Nigan bears the responsibility of safeguarding what he inherited from his late father, no matter the cost. As he departs, the boy broods over their exchange, unsettled by Nigan's logic. The idea of sacrificing one for many gnaws at him. At that moment, Yuri appears, admitting she cannot grasp such complexities, but she knows one thing: he must walk the path he believes is right, for that is what truly matters. Back at Nigan's mansion, the man weeps over the Hydra's death as if mourning a beloved pet, frantically shouting into a mirror known as Shadow that the creature must be replaced. Unmoved by his distress, Shadow dismisses the Hydra as easily replaceable, insisting that the real obstacle is the warrior himself. After all, they both know he possesses the power to vanquish S-rank ancient dragons. To the entity in the mirror, the boy is neither a god nor a hero but a demon, and if Nigan wishes to safeguard his land, he must eliminate him. Though momentarily shaken by doubt, Nigan succumbs to the mirror's insidious persuasion and resolves to comply. When he hesitantly refers to Shadow as the Viscount Demon, the entity sneers at humanity's gullibility, savoring the inevitability of one day fully seizing control of Nigan's body. Meanwhile, as he surveys Rick Village, the warrior discovers a ruined outer wall, long abandoned and crumbling, likely explaining the relentless monster incursions. Nearby, he questions a villager about their leader, but the woman recoils in terror, dropping her firewood before fleeing. The reaction mirrors the fear he had witnessed from the men earlier when Nigan was mentioned, deepening his suspicion that something is gravely wrong. Moving forward, he approached another villager with a question, only for the man to preemptively declare he had nothing to say. Adventurers and scouts had come before, only to abandon Rick's people in their suffering. To emphasize his point, he gestured toward a barren field, once fertile but now reduced to a wasteland by relentless monster attacks. The villagers yearned for an ordinary life, yet they now faced the grim choice of perishing from starvation or being torn apart by beasts. With nothing more to add, the man urged him to leave. Instead, he stepped onto the desolate land and invoked his earth arts, universal garden and universal seeds, instantly restoring lush fields of crops. Turning next to the ruined outer wall, he unleashed the art of war, erecting an immense fortification around the settlement. With his work complete, he urged the villagers to summon him should danger arise and reminded them that survival required choosing life over surrender. Finally, in an act of humility, he bowed, offering his aid to Rick Village. The man burst into laughter, finding his peculiar request amusing in such a dire moment. It was the second time he had encountered such words, the first being from the former lord, Nigan's father. Back then, the village had been embroiled in conflict, yet the late lord had commanded his people never to surrender, for once a life was lost, nothing could be done to restore it. According to the villager, the former lord had been courageous, kind, and full of life. However, everything had crumbled after Nigan assumed power. Around that time, the Hydra had emerged. Its presence no coincidence, as Nigan himself had orchestrated the sacrificial pact. Beyond that, he had imposed exorbitant taxes and neglected the village's defenses, forcing many to abandon their homes. Yet despite the despair, the peasants saw a flicker of hope in him, and the young warrior resolved to fight for Rick's future. At that moment, a monstrous horde surged toward the village, but he vowed that not a single creature would lay a hand on its people, no matter the cost. Scaling the wall, Ein scans the battlefield, his worst fears materializing. An endless horde surges forward. Ursula's warning is dire. If the defenses crumble, annihilation is certain, and the village's fate is sealed. Yuri, tense with urgency, demands Ein's strategy. As he deliberates, his eyes settle on the despondent villagers, bracing for the inevitable. The sight rekindles memories of past triumphs, reigniting the purpose he once embodied. Steeled by resolve, he commands Yuri to retreat within his eye and orders the villagers to fall back. Soaring skyward, he recalls his vow, to safeguard their smiles. If thousands march, thousands will fall. With unwavering conviction, he unleashes the spiral bullet upon the relentless swarm. Yet even as devastation ripples through their ranks, the sheer magnitude of the enemy renders his efforts seemingly in vain. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the monsters display uncanny coordination, vaulting over their own to close the gap. As they lunge, A activates super-evaluation, decelerating time to obliterate them with edge of the wind and blink of an eye. Ascending once more, he escalates the battle, summoning a gravitational well before unleashing a spiral bullet engulfing the battlefield. An ambush from behind is met with ruthless precision. He counters with back attack and double more, scattering clones before slicing through the beasts with steel wire. As Rick's villagers flee in terror, the chaos abruptly subsides. Trembling, they turn, only to witness the aftermath. The hero sent to protect them stands alone, every monster already reduced to nothing. Ursula warns that pressing on will be his downfall, but Ein refuses to waver until the last enemy falls. To honor his oath, he unleashes Steel Cutter IMB, followed by Expansive Cut, its range unfathomable. The spirits within him beg for restraint, yet he ignores their pleas. As another horde encircles him, retreat is no longer an option. Resolute, he executes Sword Draw attack, instantly cleaving through every foe in reach. The battlefield lies in ruin, monsters slain, Ein barely standing. Yuri arrives stunned by the sheer carnage, unable to mask her awe. With his mission complete, Ein finally collapses, utterly drained. Weakly, he murmurs that safeguarding Rick Village is a relief. But Yuri urges silence, focusing on his treatment. She presses a World Tree drop fragment to her barely conscious ally. Ursula observes in quiet reverence. His resilience is astounding, yet even Yuri's healing struggles to keep pace. The truth remains. This lone warrior obliterated an entire army. Though he teetered on the brink, the spirit of nature ultimately restores him. As awareness returns, A finds himself surrounded by villagers, their gratitude immeasurable for the hero who risked everything. Then, one man voices a sobering thought. Will they continue relying on fate while an outsider nearly perished for them? They had surrendered to despair, yet he fought. This cannot remain unchanged. The villagers bow their heads, lamenting that their true oppressor is their lord. Yet the man's fiery words shatter their resignation. Excuses will not alter their fate. For too long they have sacrificed loved ones, enduring a wretched existence. He then challenges them. Did they not feel a spark as they watched her risk everything for their village, their dignity? His words ignite the crowd, and in unison they acknowledge the truth. They too must fight, for this cycle of suffering must end. Yuri rejoices as their shattered spirits reignite, crediting A's unwavering resolve. It fills her with profound joy. Reflecting, A admits he may have edged closer to understanding her. Perplexed, Yuri listens as he recalls the spirit's intervention when they first met. Yet something far deeper unfolded. In the end, the World Tree spirit granted him dignity, confidence, and courage, a warmth he had never known. If he can share even a fragment of that with the villagers, A finds solace in becoming a little more like Yuri. After all, he longs to see the world through her eyes, always by her side. As this heartfelt moment lingers, the peasants gather, drawn to the quiet intimacy of their exchange, subtly making them aware of their closeness. Still, the villagers urge them to continue. Such is the way of youth. As for the rest, their resolve is clear. They will rise against Nigan's rule. As the townspeople conclude their deliberations, the Lord himself arrives, demanding to know the nature of their discourse. A hush blankets the crowd, save for the boldest among them, the first to speak out. He declares that Rick's people will no longer bow to the nobility, igniting a chorus of voices denouncing their ruler's corruption. With cold cynicism, Nigan counters that they have been misled. Ein is no man but a demon. How else could he alone vanquish a hydra and an entire horde? This, he claims, was the demon's true scheme: to sow discord, turn the people against their rightful master, and seize Rick for himself. Yet, Nigan assures them, he remains their protector, as he always has. But his plea falls on deaf ears. The people would rather follow a so-called demon than endure his rule. Bewildered, the young lord struggles to fathom their ingratitude had he not safeguarded these lands. Yet to the commoners his protection never extended to them. They were mere pawns sacrificed for dominion. What they seek is a leader who stands with them, one like Nigan's father once was. At the mention of his father, a buried torment resurfaces within Nigan, seizing him with unbearable pain. Desperate, he turns to Shadow for guidance. Meanwhile, Ein catches sight of the amulet clutched in the noble's grip and attempts to decipher its properties, only to be thwarted by a concealment spell, eerily similar to his past encounter with Zoid. From within, Shadow smirks. The time has come to escalate the game. Ein races to warn Nigan of the looming danger, but shadows coil around the boy, dragging him into an abyss. There, lost in darkness, he pleads for direction. Shadow's whisper slithers through the void: "Obey and the suffering will cease." Shadow's command is absolute: eliminate them all. Those who defy him are nothing, just like his father. Nigan clings to memories of his father's illness, but Shadow only scoffs at his ignorance, ready to unveil the brutal truth. The scene shifts to Nigan's childhood, where he eagerly joins his father in the fields, yearning to rest beside him after a day's toil. A grateful villager bows, honored that the Lord of Rick would labor alongside mere peasants. Nigan's father embodied humility, believing the village belonged to all and should flourish as one. Revered by his people, he was neither arrogant nor incompetent. Watching him, young Nigan brimmed with admiration, aspiring to follow in his footsteps. Determined to match his father's resolve, Nigan rushes to assist but stumbles over a stone, collapsing. His parents rush to his side, concern shadowing their faces. Though he insists his fever has passed, his father gently urges him to play. Work can wait, for a child's duty is joy. Rejected by his peers, Nigan longs to join their games, but whispers of his frailty have spread, branding him untouchable. Isolated, he wanders the town in silent despair. Through tear-blurred eyes he overhears a hushed conversation, three men murmuring that he bears no likeness to his father, speculating he was merely a feeble child abandoned in Abyss Wood. Rage ignites within him, but as he dashes away he slips into a murky puddle, his frustration mounting. Doubt coils around him like a vice. He is certain now. He isn't his father's son, merely a shadow too weak to ever measure up. As Nigan's tears merge with the water, the reflection darkens into an inky void. A voice rises from the abyss whispering that it matters not if he mirrors his father, only that he forges his own path. Intrigued, Nigan questions the eerie figure mimicking him. With an impatient sigh, it names itself Shadow, his secret companion. From that moment, Shadow becomes an ever-present force shaping Nigan's world. One morning, in playful jest, Nigan suggests a contest: who can fall asleep fastest, yet his gaze drifts to his father, burdened and weary. When asked, the man dismisses it as mere exposure to monster miasma. That night, Nigan shares his concerns with Shadow, who chuckles knowingly, whispering of an herb that cures fatigue. Encouraged, Nigan consults a plant guide confirming its properties. Determined, he brews a remedy and eagerly offers it to his father. Trusting his son, the man drinks deeply, relief washing over him at once. Exhausted, with dark circles shadowing his gaze, the Lord knelt before Nigan, imploring him to preserve his kindness. It would shape him into a great ruler. Yet his health deteriorated, and Nigan, desperate, continued administering the remedy. Then, one fateful morning, as he carried another dose to his father's chambers, he found him lifeless. Grief consumed him. His beloved father was gone, and in his frailty he was thrust into leadership, young, uncertain, and alone. Sensing its moment, Shadow tightened its grip, whispering of power and guidance. Bereft of all else, Nigan clung to the only presence that had never abandoned him. Back in the present, Shadow coldly reveals the truth. Nigan himself caused his father's death. Beyond this abyssal void, Ein struggles to reach him, but his cries fade into nothingness. Nigan protests, convinced his father merely succumbed to illness, but Shadow shatters the illusion. What he had believed to be medicine was in fact poison. Horrified, Nigan recalls the book's assurance of the herb's healing properties, only for Shadow to sneer, confessing he had altered it to deceive him. Then the final betrayal. Ein was never the true demon. Shadow was. His true goal had been to possess Nigan's father, to forge a gateway for human trafficking into the demonic realm. But the Lord never wavered, leaving his son the ideal pawn, isolated, trusting, and effortlessly led astray. Through Nigan's unwitting hand, countless lives had been consigned to the demon realm. Believing he was saving his father, he had only sealed his fate. Worse yet, though he and the late Lord shared no blood, they shared one trait. They were both fools. With a final scathing remark, Shadow deems him unfit to rule, frail in body, weaker in mind. A chilling scream shatters the air as Nigan writhes in torment, the darkness consuming him, peeling away to reveal Shadow. With a smug smirk, the entity declares he is now merged with his old friend. Horrified by the grotesque transformation, Ein demands to know his identity. Shadow grins, introducing himself as Shadow the Seducer, a viscount of the demonic nobility. Only then does Ursula grasp the truth. The fiend had cloaked himself in deception all along. But Ein has no patience for revelations, he only cares where Nigan is. Shadow gestures to himself, mocking how effortlessly Nigan succumbed, his fragile spirit so feeble that the slightest turmoil granted full possession. Yet he refuses to let Ein feign innocence. With a sneer he declares it was Ein's failure that doomed Nigan. His scheme had unfolded flawlessly, crippling the land's defenses, feeding souls to the demonic realm, until Ein's arrival shattered his plans. With no recourse he was forced to claim Nigan entirely. And now the one who wields the spiritual eye must fall as well. Unlike the brute Falco, Shadow understands human frailty, and how to exploit it. Ein hesitates, knowing that a reckless strike could cost Nigan his life. Shadow seizes the moment, launching a swift and merciless attack, forcing Ein to evade. Unwilling to endanger Nigan, Ein resorts to sealing Shadow within a mystical barrier. Yet the demon scoffs, effortlessly shattering the confinement with anti-spirit arts, a cruel mockery of his opponent's own expertise. Still, Ein has one final gambit, unleashing spirit magic on such a scale that not even Shadow can endure. But the demon ensures Ein's focus is divided. With a mere snap, horrors erupt from the earth, swarming toward the villagers with blinding ferocity. Ein strikes down one before it claims a life, erecting a barrier for their defense. Shadow sneers at the lapse in focus, warning that neglecting the true threat is a fatal blunder. Wave after wave of fiends surge forth, turning the battlefield into a maelstrom of chaos. As if to mock his efforts, Shadow effortlessly shatters Ein's barrier, plunging the villagers into peril once more. In response, Ein unleashes double mirage, dispatching spectral clones to combat the beasts while urging the townsfolk to flee. A desperate cry pierces the chaos, a villager ensnared moments from death. Realizing he needs even more clones, Ein hesitates for a fraction too long, seizing the opening. Shadow delivers a crushing blow, sneering at his divided attention. With cruel amusement, the demon watches Ein scramble, deriding his frantic heroics. Saving the weak must be exhausting, he taunts. Look at you, flailing like a headless chicken. Amid the escalating turmoil, Ein struggles to sharpen his focus, his abilities faltering under the strain. Instinct compels him to counter, yet he hesitates. Nigan is still inside. Instead, he fortifies himself with a movable fortress, enduring the relentless assault. Furious, Ursula snaps that defense alone is useless. Passivity will only lead to ruin. Ein knows this, yet he refuses to forsake Nigan. A plan forms, infuse his strike with Yuri's purification. But uncertainty lingers. What if it harms the boy? Sensing his hesitation, Shadow sneers, pressing the cruel truth. Only Nigan's death will end this. Why should one life outweigh the many? But Ein stands resolute. No matter the odds, he will never sacrifice one to save 100. With no alternatives left, Ein calls out Nigan's name, a final desperate attempt to reach him. Shadow sneers, amused by the futility, yet Ein remains unshaken, enduring the relentless onslaught without striking back. Then, against all odds, he advances, just a few steps, yet enough to rattle his foe. Why won't he fall? The spirits urge him not to give in, warning they cannot intervene under these conditions. But Ein's resolve is unyielding. His focus remains on Nigan and the people of Rick. Summoning every ounce of strength, he lunges forward, grabbing Shadow by the collar, vowing to protect them all. Without hesitation, Ein slams his forehead into the demon, sending him crashing into the earth. Buried in the abyss of Shadow's grip, Nigan kneels, head bowed, drowning in despair. Racked with guilt, he convinces himself that every tragedy stems from his weakness, that the world would be better off without him. Yet through the suffocating void a voice emerges, calling his name, faint at first, then growing louder, piercing the darkness. Beyond the abyss, Ein pleads for him to fight, reminding him of the vow he once made to protect Rick. The words ignite something deep within Nigan, an ember of resolve, a memory of his father and the strength he once longed for. A deeper truth unfurls within him. It was never solely about defending the land. His father had been cherished, surrounded by warmth, his kindness reciprocated tenfold. Perhaps more than anything, Nigan yearned for that same bond, to embody the compassion his father once implored him to preserve, so he might one day stand as a true and noble lord. Amidst the chaos, a peasant leader drives a rake into a monster's eye, unveiling its weakness. Rallying a few comrades to safety, he calls upon the villagers to fight for Nigan. Hesitation lingers. Why risk their lives for the very boy who led them into this disaster? Yet the leader reminds them of their vow, to abandon blame and take action. Resentment must wait. Survival demands unity. Stirred by his words, the villagers steel themselves, seizing whatever weapons they can muster, ready to defy the darkness. Ensnared within Shadow's abyss, Nigan drowns in guilt, convinced his recklessness has doomed Rick. He chastises himself, cursing his blindness to the deception. Yet, rather than wallow in despair, he makes a choice to confront his failures, to rise above regret, and to reclaim his right as Lord. With unshaken resolve, he surges toward the light slicing through the void. Despite the crushing blow, Shadow steadies himself, sneering at Ein's defiance. He taunts that all Ein has achieved is deepening Nigan's suffering. Yet before he can strike again, a violent tremor racks his form. Nigan resists. Fury ignites in Shadow's gaze. He snarls at the futility of struggle, but Nigan's voice cuts through. A final whisper of gratitude reaching A without hesitation. Nigan drives a dagger into his own chest. Ein moves to stop him, but Ursula holds him back. This sacrifice must not be in vain. Shadow recoils, incredulous at the boy's unwavering resolve. Does he truly wish to perish like this? Nigan meets his gaze, unshaken. He confesses that deep down he always knew Shadow was no mere illusion, yet he chose to believe otherwise, clinging to the idea of a friend, and strangely, despite the deceit, the bloodshed, and the ruin left in Shadow's wake, he cannot bring himself to see the demon as an enemy. Once Shadow urged him to forge his own path, to live by his own will. Perhaps it was all manipulation, a tapestry of lies spun for the demon's gain, but that doesn't erase the single undeniable truth. Shadow once saved him, and to Nigan that bond was real. Shadow sneers at Nigan, deriding him as a feeble sentimental pawn before coldly bidding him to perish alone. Without hesitation, he vanishes, his form shifting into a diminutive frog-rat hybrid, slipping away unnoticed. Spotting Mia, he attempts to infiltrate her body, only for Ain's blade to pierce his skull with precision. Ain swiftly turns to Nigan, channeling Yuri's healing powers, yet the wound remains unyielding. Despair creeps in until Yuri intervenes, reassuring Ain that their emotions will reach him. Calling his name repeatedly, their voices tether Nigan back from the abyss. As his eyes flutter open, Ain and Yuri embrace him tightly. Yet upon grasping his situation, he recoils, demanding to know why they saved him. He insists his death would have been preferable, but Ain stands resolute, declaring that he refuses to let anyone, least of all Nigan, die. The villagers arrive, and their leader declares that Nigan cannot atone through death. He must endure the wrath and sorrow of those he wronged. Escaping is not an option. Realizing this chance for redemption, Nigan expresses his gratitude. Yuri smiles but suddenly collapses from exhaustion. Ain catches her and carries her beneath a tree. As he watches over her, he contemplates how, had he met Shadow instead of Nigan, he might have shared his fate. The thought fuels his fury toward the demons who exploit the weak, vowing to annihilate them all. Ursula and the others emerge from Ain's eye to check on Yuri, while Pina and Alice spot Shadow, still clinging to life despite Ain's sword. Shrinking further, he attempts to flee, but Pina swiftly traps him in a barrier. Summoning Ain, she watches as he demands Shadow's motive for the demon's relentless pursuit on pain of annihilation. Shadow bargains for freedom in exchange for the truth. Ain remains silent, prompting Shadow to confess an order for his execution. Ain presses for the source, but just as Shadow utters Edna's name, he abruptly explodes. Ursula deduces that the explosion was a safeguard spell, ensuring the mastermind's identity remains hidden. She remarks that they are up against a cunning and meticulous adversary. As Ain bids farewell to the villagers, Nigan makes a final request. He asks Ain to oversee his territory, as they cannot survive without him. The villagers echo his plea, leaving Ain hesitant. Upon returning to the capital, the king summons Ain, revealing that Nigan surrendered and formally petitioned for Ain to inherit the Rishik region. Stunned, Ain listens as the king explains that he intended to grant him nobility and land regardless, making this arrangement mutually beneficial. Suddenly, everyone urges Ain to accept, assuring him they will handle the complexities. Overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility, Ain ultimately agrees, embracing both the title and the land. News of Ain's victory over Shadow swiftly reaches Echidna, who feels both impressed and relieved. Had he failed, her plans would have faltered. Suddenly, Iona, a gothic low-tier demon, arrives atop her decayed servant, questioning Echidna's fixation on Ain. Echidna reveals Ain's unique eye, but Iona dismisses him as an ordinary human. Echidna counters. No mere human could have vanquished Falco and Shadow. Determined to eliminate Ain, she assigns Iona the task. Iona scoffs at such a trivial mission until Echidna sweetens the deal, capturing a world tree spirit. Since Ain is already pursuing it, she can accomplish both at once. Intrigued, Iona accepts, confident in her superiority. She commands her servant to leap into the portal, only to realize it's already dead. Unbothered, she abandons it and jumps herself, while Echidna smirks. Her true intent is to strengthen Ain further. Meanwhile, in the human realm, Yuri excitedly offers to cook for Ain, but before he responds, Alice arrives with urgent news. Pina instantly assumes she's confessing her feelings, prompting Yuri to declare she wants to do the same. Alice, unfazed, clarifies her priority is finding her sisters, and she has been using her abilities to locate other world trees. Everyone grows excited, believing Alice has located another world tree, but she clarifies that someone revealed it to her. Ain, uninterested in details, insists they find the spirit. Suddenly, a blindfolded, mature voice agrees. Confused, Ain scans the room, hearing the voice again, this time from the bed. Turning, he finds a blindfolded woman reclining seductively and panics, demanding her identity. She affectionately calls Yuri and the others her sisters, inviting them closer. Yuri leaps at her, calling her elder sister Kirsch, only to realize it's merely an illusion. Disappointed, Yuri pouts, while Ain struggles to process the situation. Pina clarifies that Kirsch is the second eldest world tree spirit. shocking Ain that one sought him out directly. Introducing himself, he finds Kirsch closing in, making him flustered. Alice, irritated, scolds her for flirting and demands she get to the point. Kirsch explains that a world tree is under demon attack and needs Ain's help. When he asks for its location, she corrects him. It's not her in danger, but May, their youngest and most cherished sister. Kirsch reveals that May's hidden dungeon is an entire forest, but she lacks a guardian. Hers perished long ago when greedy intruders sought the world tree's power. Enraged, Ain clenches his fist, but Kirsch soothes him, explaining that she has been protecting May herself. Ain is taken aback. World tree spirits aren't meant to leave their trees. Pina clarifies that the three eldest sisters, being high-level spirits, possess some mobility. Understanding now, Ain realizes Kirsch has safeguarded May until now, but a demon threatens to take her. Kirsch confirms and smirks, adding, "This is what I expected from Yuri's fiancé." Ain freezes at the implication of commitment. Then Kirsch twirls gracefully, revealing that the body before them is merely an illusion. Her true form remains beside May. Pina inquires whether Kirsch could vanquish the demon threatening May using her special abilities. Kirsch admits she could, but unleashing her full power risks obliterating May's forest along with the foe. Ain deduces that her blindfold suppresses her immense strength, and she confirms it. Realizing the demon must be formidable if Kirsch hesitates to act, Ain vows to protect the world tree spirit. Kirsch assures him that Alice knows the location of the Mage tree. Upon reaching May's cursed forest, Ursula warns that powerful hexes plague the land, trapping those who succumb. Ain merges Alice's thousand-eyed ability with his appraisal skill to navigate toward the Mage tree, yet Pina notes the eerie absence of monsters and traps. Ursula explains, the creatures are present but cowering. Aware that Ain's power far surpasses theirs, taking advantage of the situation, Ain accelerates toward May, only to halt abruptly, sensing imminent danger. Above, a swarm of demonic bees darkens the sky, guided by the sinister presence of a demon, Hornet. Hornet declares her intent to kill Ain, but before she can act, a monstrous bear emerges. She commands her swarm to attack, and within seconds the creature is devoured. Certain of Ain's imminent demise against such overwhelming numbers, she is caught off guard when he vanishes, only to reappear behind her, driving a blade into her chest, yet this proves futile. Hornet dissolves into a swarm of bees, taunting Ain that he will never locate her true form. Unfazed, Ain asserts that he has no need to search. He will simply eradicate all demons. Ursula has already discerned the swarm's vulnerabilities, and with precise execution, Ain unleashes a barrage of fire bullets, incinerating them in an instant. Overwhelmed by fear, Hornet flees, desperate to escape through a portal to the demon realm. To her horror, Iona steps through the gateway, her expression laced with disdain at the sight of a retreating demon. Hornet stammers an explanation, but Iona dismisses her with cold contempt before obliterating her. She then turns her gaze to Ain, introducing herself as a duke of the demon realm. Despite the overwhelming pressure she exerts, Ain remains unfazed, though he acknowledges her formidable strength. Iona, intrigued, declares that killing him will be entertaining, but Ain dismisses the notion. She won't get the chance. In an instant, he teleports behind her, unleashing a skill that siphons her power. Caught off guard, Iona fails to anticipate his move. Seizing the advantage, Ain amplifies his strength and mercilessly pummels her, sending her soaring skyward before slamming her into the ground. Rather than despair, Iona laughs, exhilarated. She hasn't faced such a powerful foe in ages. Drawing her magic pistols, she fires, claiming her special attack is unavoidable. But Ain has no intention of dodging. He effortlessly parries, redirecting the bullets straight back at her. Stunned, she struggles to comprehend the impossible reversal. Attempting to evade, she proves too slow and takes the full impact. Disbelief grips her. Could a single instance of power loss render her this weak? Desperately, she tries to retreat, but Ain materializes behind her and in a flash severs her head. Even in death, Iona fails to grasp what has transpired, and reveals that he hasn't drained Iona's power just once. Each strike siphoned more of her strength. Now she is weaker than a mere monster. Staggered by the revelation, Iona refuses to accept it, insisting that as an elite of the demon hierarchy, such a downfall is impossible. Seething, she denounces Ain as a coward for resorting to such tactics and activates a portal to escape, vowing to kill him upon their next encounter. Before she can step through, Ursula intervenes, reminding him of their priority, finding May and Kirsch. Ain concurs and soon discovers a concealed magical barrier obscuring May's location. As he contemplates a way in, the barrier deactivates, and a gate materializes before him. Stepping through, he finds himself in a serene, jubilant realm where the real Kirsch awaits. Yuri dashes forward, embracing Kirsch before exchanging a secret handshake with Pina. Ein inquires about May, and Kirsch gestures toward her. She is peacefully napping, not wanting to disturb her. Ein remains still, but an inadvertent step on a twig jolts May awake, and she immediately bursts into tears. Ein panics, struggling to soothe the wailing baby, but his every attempt backfires, intensifying May's cries. Fortunately, Yuri steps in, and the moment May sees her elder sister, she stops sobbing and leaps into her arms, declaring how much she missed her. She then greets Pina and Alice, explaining that she had been crafting flower crowns to welcome them but dozed off before finishing. Yuri helps complete one, gently placing it on May's head, assuring her they can make more for the group later. Delighted, May beams as Yuri compliments her, calling her adorable. However, the moment her gaze falls on Ein again, panic sets in. She warns her sisters to keep their distance, convinced he is the dangerous man who tried to harm her. Yuri quickly reassures her. Ein isn't the villain. He was the one who drove the real threats away. Trusting her sister, May relaxes and apologizes for the misunderstanding. Ein dismisses it with a smile, assuring her it's no big deal. May's demeanor shifts instantly as she eagerly demands head pats, a seat on Ein's lap, and to be lifted high. Amused, Ein indulges her, but when she insists on going even higher, he decides to jump. Underestimating his own strength, he soars far beyond expectations. Panic sets in. Will may be terrified, even Yuri and the others brace for tears. Yet, as Ein lands safely, May erupts into laughter, declaring it the most fun she's had. She proudly adds Ein to her list of favorite people, and everyone sighs in relief. Had she disliked him, a tantrum would have been inevitable. Moments later, May eagerly asks if she can accompany Ein. He turns to Kirsch for approval, and she agrees, opting to remain behind to protect the World Tree. Ein hesitates, wondering if she wouldn't rather stay with her sisters. Smiling, Kirsch admits she would and thanks him for making that possible. Ein assures Kirsch that he will erect a barrier around May's World Tree and leave a clone to alert them of any threats. Relieved, Kirsch summons a concealed tree harboring her and May's spirit cores, entrusting them to Ein before turning to her sisters, declaring that she will stay with them from now on. As they reconnect, Ursula approaches, patting Ein on the back. She acknowledges his efforts. He has already reunited Yuri with 4 of her sisters, and with 4 more remaining she has no doubt he will succeed. Suddenly, Ein delves into his past, recounting, once again, how he was a failure before meeting Yuri. He confides in Ursula that for the first time he has found purpose, safeguarding Yuri's happiness and that of her sisters. He admits he is proud of himself now, and intends to continue pursuing what makes him worthy of that pride. Ursula recalls the pitiful coward Ein once was, and witnessing his transformation nearly brings her to tears. Unwilling to show emotion, she masks it with a kick, demanding the spirit cores. Ein hands them over, and she embeds them into his artificial eye, bestowing him with Kirsch's evil eye and May's tree creation ability. His eye evolves further, granting him the ability to perceive auras. Kirsch warns him that her evil eye can erase anything within its sight, but at a steep cost. It drains immense mana and carries severe side effects. She advises restraint. Ein, unnerved, decides to reserve it as a last resort. Meanwhile, May eagerly explains her gift, demonstrating by conjuring a colossal tree from nothing, leaving Ein in awe. Ursula informs Ein that his newly enhanced vision allows him to perceive auras, an ability that significantly amplifies strength. Demons frequently utilize it, and Iona's swift defeat stemmed from her failure to activate hers. She also reveals that his recent level up has imbued his sword with an anti-demon aura, making battles against demons considerably easier. With their newfound abilities, Ein and his companions head to Nigan's castle, which will now serve as their base. On the first day, Ein initiates a thorough cleanup, much to Yuri's enthusiasm. Pina is less than thrilled, while Alice is determined to impress Ein. Meanwhile, Kirsch remains unconscious after a night of heavy drinking, and May throws a tantrum, preferring play over chores. Ein successfully convinces everyone to contribute, efficiently assigning teams to expedite the cleanup. He pairs with Alice to tackle the library, where nostalgic memories of their first encounter resurface. Sensing a rare moment alone, Alice sees this as the perfect opportunity to confess her feelings. However, before she can speak, Ein innocently asks if she loves books. Mishearing him, she assumes he's referring to himself and hesitates, flustered. Before she can process her emotions, Ein casually remarks that he feels the same way. About books, overwhelmed, Alice enters a euphoric state, convinced of his love. As Ein tries to clarify, a rogue book strikes him, knocking him unconscious. Meanwhile, Pina attempts to use illusions to feign cleaning the kitchen, but Kuro easily sees through the deception and forces her to do it properly. Yuri and Ursula take charge of cleaning the baths, but Ursula, in her overprotective nature, ends up slamming her head against a pillar while trying to catch Yuri mid-slip. Exasperated, Yuri urges her to loosen up, insisting that she wants to explore new experiences rather than be constantly shielded. She expresses her desire to work hard and bring joy to Ein as his happiness fuels her own. Touched, Ursula resolves to fully support her efforts. Meanwhile, Kirsch and May handle the storehouse, where May stumbles upon a cockroach and excitedly declares it her new pet. Horrified, Kirsch nearly activates her evil eye before May casually discards the insect. Soon after, May discovers a closet brimming with dresses and the girls eagerly sift through the outfits. Elsewhere, Ein wraps up his cleaning and heads to check on the others, only to be left breathless as Yuri descends the stairs in a stunning dress. Completely captivated, he stands speechless until Yuri, noticing his reaction, explains that she found it in the storehouse closet May uncovered. Yuri shyly asks Ein if she looks good, blushing as he calls her adorable. Smiling, she takes his hand and leads him to a party celebrating Kirsch and May's arrival. Upon entering, Ein realizes all the girls have dressed elegantly, while he still looks like a janitor. Fortunately, they've prepared an outfit for him, but when he hesitates, an impatient Ursula simply rips off his clothes and dresses him herself. As the festivities begin, Yuri eagerly pulls Ein onto the dance floor, but Alice hesitates, feeling left out. Sensing her insecurity, Yuri invites her to join, insisting that dancing together will be even more fun. She then calls her other sisters, and Kira provides music with her flute. They dance with joy, and as the night winds down, Ein and Yuri step outside to watch the sunset. Grateful, Yuri thanks him for reuniting her with her sisters. Ein gently reassures her he won't stop until he finds the rest, so they can all be together as one big happy family.